let's start off with, can you introduce yourself
Yes.
for my listeners?
My name is Stella Barey. I make all my money on OnlyFans, and all the girls know me from TikTok. A lot of men know me from Twitter and TikTok and Reddit. And that's about it.
Okay, and so where did you grow up? Give me like a little spiel of like family life.
I was born in LA. I was actually born at UCLA, and I lived in California on the beach till I was 6. Then I moved to Montana because my dad was all like stressed out living in the city. And so we moved to a tiny little ski town in Montana, and I lived there till I was 13. And then I moved to London for the rest of high school, also for my dad's job. And then I went to NYU. So I was in New York City for 4 years. Then I moved to LA and I went to UCLA for almost 2 years because after I graduated college, I decided I wanted to go to medical school, but I hadn't done any sciences since high school. So then I moved to LA, did that. And then while I was in LA, I started going to all these sex parties and everything. And that's how I figured out I want to do porn.
And it brought you to this moment.
Yeah.
Were your parents together growing up?
Yeah, my parents were together growing up. I had such a good childhood. Like I had a really amazing childhood out in the forest. My mom is a doctor, but she retired when I was young. She kept her license, but she didn't work. Mm-hmm. And so I was just raised with a really amazing stay-at-home mom out in the forest in Montana, riding horses and skiing and biking and running.
So you feel like you had like a really well-rounded childhood.
Yeah, and then like moving to London too was so good for me because it was kind of culture shock and living in the center of a city. And then I started clubbing every night and like not being such a good girl anymore. And that was like super formative for me, I think.
Well, I think there's also such a misconception of people who work in porn. There's this stigma that everyone who works in porn like comes from a broken family, has some trauma, which is like why you're, all the list goes on and on of what people can come up with.
Yeah, a lot of people say that about me. They're like, you're definitely this way because of trauma, but I really don't think I mean, I've been through certain things in my life, but I don't think of myself as having trauma. Mm-hmm. And I've been lucky enough to have a really amazing mother and a pretty good dad. Like he has his own issues, but he didn't give me, I don't think he really gave me trauma. And then like I don't have any sexual trauma. Like I've luckily, even though I've been crazy in my life, I've never had like assault or anything happen to me. And so I really think that is the way I am. Like this lack of really traumatizing things happening to me, especially around sex, has made me like, it's where I go to play and be really goofy and like get to know people and be vulnerable. And I feel so comfortable there and open about it. And I really think that's why I am that way. But yeah, a lot of people do say that I'm probably like because of trauma.
Have you always been very sexually open?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up like, since my mom's a gynecologist, she always talked about our bodies and sex and everything. And like our whole family, like we were just always naked around the house when we were kids and stuff. So nudity was like not weird to me.
It wasn't sexualized.
Yeah, exactly. It was just, it was like a place of curiosity, like your own body. Mm-hmm. And then I lost my virginity at 13, also purely just for curiosity with one of my best guy friends / like, young boyfriend.
Yeah.
And I remember always in high school.
13 feels young to me.
Yeah.
I guess today it doesn't feel as young.
I was a freshman in high school.
People are fucking definitely way younger. Right. But like I didn't even have my period yet at 13.
I think I'd just gotten my period. And it was young, like none of my friends had done it. And it's weird to say this, but it wasn't like super sexual. Like it was really a curiosity where we really liked each other and we wanted to explore each other's bodies and like see how stuff worked. And we'd been like dating.
Had you been
best friends for like 3 years?
Had you just been experiencing and like trying out like fingering, blowjobs,
no,
like all
that's
with the same person or even younger?
The craziest thing is I didn't even see his penis before we had tried having sex.
Oh, wow. And
I didn't even learn. I don't think I even figured out how to. It was around that time that I figured out how to orgasm for the first time. But I honestly think it was after we first tried having sex. So like we just went straight into like, let's try putting your penis inside of me in my playroom in my house when my parents were out in the garden. I mean, it didn't really work. Like he fit inside of me. He didn't finish. We had so much fun. Like we were laughing about it. And then I do remember that I had to go to school the next day. And for that whole week, my pelvis like hurt so bad. And I think it was because I was clenching, because like there was no way that he like hurt me because he hardly even did anything. But I think I was like clenching probably so much that I made myself super sore.
Did you tell your parents or your mom?
Yeah, I told my mom pretty soon after because I was all freaked out. Like I didn't even know how stuff worked. I didn't know that he didn't come. Like I didn't even know that,
how
you know,
get pregnant,
how they come and stuff. And so I was like, hey, Mom, don't be mad, but and I knew she wouldn't be, but I feared that I'd disappoint her, I think, more than anything.
And what was her response?
I told her I needed to be on birth control because I had sex, and she just basically clowned on me for being like so annoying about telling her, being like, I'm only going to tell you if you're not going to be mad at me. And she was like, okay, like we'll take you to one of my friends, because she wasn't going to be the first one to like do all this. She was like, okay, this is a rite of passage. Like you go see a gynecologist now that you're sexually active. So she took me to her old partner in practice in California, and they just like showed me this is what it's like to get an STD test. This is like what birth control options are. I don't think I started birth control for like another year though. Mm-hmm. But she was super understanding, and also she lost her virginity, I think about 14.
Okay, but you're coming from an environment that's very non-judgmental.
Yeah, extremely.
And like not shaming.
Yeah,
which I think
I've never felt shamed, thank God.
Around your sexuality,
yeah.
which I think is very important, and obviously I'm sure has kind of, gotten you, it's part of your story of why you're here today.
Definitely. It's why I'm like my sexuality is very playful and like goofy and curious, and it's so much about getting to know people and like observing people in that really vulnerable situation.
Totally.
And seeing what their personalities are like. I've just always had a fascination about that. And in high school, I remember being like, why am I like this? Like, why do I want to have sex with all my friends? And it was because of that. Like, I'm so curious about how they are when they're in that really vulnerable position. And then also it felt like that's the only place I can give like this real intimate love to people. Like, even if they're just my friend, to show them like, I accept you. Like, I want to make you feel good.
Do you have sex with a lot of your friends?
Not now. But in high school, I definitely did. Like, even guys I didn't want to date or things like that, I had a really close bond with. I just had this desire to make them feel like, seen and appreciated and loved, especially when like there's a really sweet guy. Like, I just want to be like, this is what you deserve. Like, you deserve to be treated so sweetly. And then it was always with men though, but then now it's more women too.
Mm-hmm. It's just interesting for me to compare kind of your experience or what I'm hearing from you to mine, because I feel like I grew up in the opposite of like, it wasn't talked about. I grew up really Catholic in this conservative bubble, didn't have a mom, so I feel like everything was kind of working against me in terms of like so much kind of shame and stigma around sex, forced me to kind of be the opposite.
Yeah, you rebelled kind of.
I totally rebelled. / was like, I think I still carry to this day a lot of internalized sexism, misogyny, and feelings of like shame around sex, which I'm like, I don't want my children, if I choose to have them, to ever feel that way. Like, I want to raise my kids in a household.
It's amazing you took that route
that you grew up in, or it sounds like, where it's like, yeah, this is totally normal. Like, I mean, I taught all my girlfriends how to use tampons, and I was kind of like, no one's talking about this shit to me, so like, let me do it.
It's so amazing that you did that, honestly. It really is, because it does make a lot of sense to me now how I ended up in this situation. Yeah. But for you, that is like pretty life-changing. I mean, to make that kind of
it makes sense to
move.
Me though, because I feel like I was always kind of rebellious in that way, and I didn't feel like I really fit in with like my classmates. I always felt like a lot of the parents of like the kids I went to school with were really judgmental.
Oh my God, mine too.
Like super in their bubble. I just remember like, I don't know, I was kind of a wild child when I was a teenager.
Me too.
And like, I remember one time this mom at my high school called my dad because she saw me drive. I used to drive to high school when I was 16. like we would drive carpool and I was smoking a cigarette driving to school, and she like saw me on my route, and she called my dad and was like, I saw your daughter like doing this, blah, 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 blah. One time I like posted on a bra on Facebook and someone sent it to my dad. Like,
oh my God.
just like so many things like that happened where I was like, you guys are all so fucking bored and annoying.
Yep. That's how I felt. Like literally my best friend in high school, we were attached at the hip, and her mom would constantly tell her to not hang out with me because I was like, yeah, I was a bad influence. When really she was like maybe crazier than I was.
But it always gets pinned on the one.
Yeah. And I also was like, I had less rules. So she had a really strict family, whereas I didn't as much. And also my dad is like a big partier and goes out a lot. So I kind of was like imitating him. And so it was kind of accepted. And I would be posting the same kind of thing, like pictures of me in a bra dancing on a table in high school, and then like be in class the next morning.
Yeah.
And I loved that feeling of like rebellion and like making people see that you're rebelling and they can't do anything about it. Like I always loved that feeling.
So you're like not a rule follower.
Yeah, I have a real like I'm
with authority.
Yeah, it really depends, but I don't like being told what to do.
Me too.
But also, you know, in college, I so respected my professors and I just absolutely loved them. But I think maybe that's because they were helping me learn instead of like telling me what to do. But when I'm told what to do, I completely rebel. Yeah, I
Where
just
do you think
can't
that comes
stand it.
from?
I mean, I think my dad is very similar to me. I think probably my mom's very similar. I come from two super type A parents. That were both super poor when they were born and then worked their way to have a lot of money, like, and be really successful in their industries. And so I think somehow they instilled that in me, where I'm super fiercely independent and I really trust my own intuition. And so when someone tells me what to do, unless there's somebody who really has something, you know, that I want, or like a life I want, or knowledge that I want, then I don't trust other people's opinions because I really know what I want.
There's this Kanye West quote that reminds me of this. It's like, why would I ever take advice from someone not doing better than me?
Yeah, someone broker than me too.
Yeah, no, but it's kind of true.
Yeah.
It's like people love to dish out like advice and opinions, but ultimately it's like, I don't know, I have such a thing with people I view as like sheep, or who just blindly follow things, and
the majority of people aren't happy is the thing. Like the large majority of humans are not happy, and so you cannot like follow people's advice that have a life that you don't want. I remember when I was about to graduate from NYU, and I decided last minute I want to go to medical school, but I haven't done any science since high school, and my counselor was like, you know, it's too late, like you should really consider doing something else. I was like, first of all, I'm like 21. I can do this whenever I want. My mom was like, you can go to medical school when you're 40. It doesn't matter. And she was like, this is why, like that type of thinking of like, oh, everybody's done it earlier, so you're a little too late to do this and it's going to be a hassle. It's like, this is my life. And that thinking is why, this is what my mom said. She said, that thinking is why that person's a college counselor, not a doctor. You know what I mean?
No, it's so true. Sorry.
Like, unless you want to be a college.
Off at me for saying this, but my friends and I always joke. There's that famous saying. It's like, if you can't do, you teach. But it's like,
yeah, I mean, it's like maybe you want to be a college counselor, but if you're going to give people advice on how to be a doctor or how to do something where it takes a lot of effort and risk and flexibility, you can't really do that with the mindset that like put you in a very safe position. You know what I mean?
Totally. I think that's something I want to instill in my kids. Again, I don't even know why I'm going down the parenting rate. I'm really hormonal right now. I'm on my period.
Well, I understand that though, because like thinking about who, if you know you're going to be a parent, thinking about who you want to be when you raise another human is super
But that's just
important.
something I really want to instill, especially like girls, women listening to this podcast. Like, I think we're told so much, like, and not even if you grew up religious, but just societally and in the media, like, you know, be quiet, like be polite, keep your legs closed, all of these kind of things. But ultimately I'm like, no, if you want to get anywhere in life, you have to kind of just like own your reality, and also how to navigate and figure out what the fuck you want out of life.
Exactly. It comes so much more from like actually listening to yourself. And I learned how to listen to myself through years of pushing myself into new environments, challenging myself with different types of classes and in education, and reading lots of philosophy, figuring out how to actually hear my voice inside, which still is hard to hear sometimes.
Yeah.
Because there is always a should. And then now I'm getting better at realizing like what my fascinations are and how to continue to follow them. I've been good at it recently, but it's a constant evolution, and it's a constant like
things shift
strength
too.
you have to constantly make yourself do things that are risky or whatever, just because it's what you're really interested in. And
so so you're gonna go to medical school, or you're taking these classes, and then you start going to sex parties. Take me down this road.
yeah, so I just met a girl in my organic chemistry class that was born and raised in LA and goes to sex parties. She's like a genius, but she also has this fascination like I do with sex, and treats it like this hobby that she wants to constantly improve at. And the way she does that is like, one of the ways is going to all these sex parties. So she invited me, and my eyes were so open. Like I've always been to clubs, and in London I would club a lot there's two different clubs. One is kind of similar to the Box. You've been to the Box, right? So kind of sex-ish, like nightclubs.
Sex, like burlesque, for people who don't know what the Box is.
Yeah.
I mean, they do crazy stuff.
They're like nude, and they'll do crazy
They'll
stuff.
like piss on the audience.
Or like smoke a cigar out of their butthole.
Or shit on a piece of pizza
Yeah,
and eat it.
yes,
I know.
exactly.
Sounds really crazy.
So I was already
and it
used
is.
to that.
Okay.
But then this was a whole new level for me, because it's not like a nightclub where there's people.
Well, you're not going to watch. You're
Exactly.
you're participating.
Well, a lot of people there are watchers, but it's not like you're watching a show, right? Like you come and they put on a little bit of a show first to kind of break the ice. Like they'll have porn stars or couples that are part of the community do shows, whether it's hot wax or spanking or just like sex. And then as the night goes on, most people are watchers there, honestly, and they just want to watch other people have sex. But then a lot of people will bring their girlfriend or boyfriend, and that's who they'll fuck. It's not usually like a big orgy where you're having sex with people you've never met.
Mm-hmm. And so how do you find these parties? Can anyone join?
I have genuinely no idea.
Regulations?
You have to be
tested before? Is it invite only?
It's invite only. You have to be a member, and to be a member you have to be referred by somebody. And I have no idea if I ever would have found out about them if I hadn't met this girl in my class and she just invited me to them, because they're not a huge, like they just happen in a house in like the Hollywood Hills or in Beverly Hills. And so I actually have no idea how to find them. I feel like you just have to be in that world.
Have you ever like been at a party where you recognize someone?
It's crazy. No. But then I have been recognized now at them.
At the parties.
Now, because now that I'm in the industry, I've been recognized at them. I think like there's been a few people I've recognized, I guess.
So
no one big.
What was the decision though from just going to these parties, you know, in your personal life and kind of enjoying this, to thinking I'm going to make a career out of this?
So what was different about this is I met a lot of porn girls. Like I met all the people at those parties are in the sex community, whether they're performers or they just do it as an art form, or it's a passion with their partner. And so I just started to realize that there is this whole sexual community that's kind of, it's like this underworld of regular society, right? And you kind of feel like, oh, if I go into porn or something like that, that your life, or if your nudes leak on the internet, like your life's gonna end. But really life continues on after you make drastic steps, like having sex on the internet. And that's kind of what it taught me, is like, oh, this is an actual option for me to have a real life. Like I can do these things and still have a house in a really nice neighborhood with my husband, and my kids go to a good school. Like all these people are living these lives among us. And I didn't know that. I thought kind of that was just, I couldn't go that route. You know, I didn't realize there was a whole world that no one really knows about. And so then I started feeling part of this community, and that's the first place I've ever met people that are so similar to me. And we all share that similar fascination with sex, and pushing our boundaries and challenging ourselves in that environment is so thrilling and just beautiful. And I just never fully been able to experience myself like I did there and with those kind of people. And also genuine geniuses like that I have met there. And so I started to feel a sense of community. And then I just realized, wow, my life wouldn't end. Like I could actually do this. And so slowly that thought creeped into my mind. I did a lot of research on it. I saw how much girls were making doing different jobs and what I would potentially do. And then weirdly enough, I guess just being so open to it, it just kind of happened to me. Like there was a point where I jumped off and said, oh, I'm going to do this as my career. But it was after I already had a big following on TikTok and people were asking me if I had an OnlyFans. And I was like, ooh, maybe I should do this before I make a little money before med school.
And did you originally just like, let's say, do it with a boyfriend or someone you were in?
I first did like bikini pictures because I knew the career of a porn star before I went into all of this. Like I thought about this a lot and I researched it a lot. So by the time I did OnlyFans, I started with bikini pictures. Then I went to nudes. Then I did little like stripping videos and solo stuff. Then I did my first blowjob with my boyfriend at the time. And then it just kept going on from there. But I've always known how to I'm going to space it out.
Mm-hmm. And what about your family?
So I didn't tell my mom, I think, until like the 4th month I was doing OnlyFans because I was terrified to tell her. Mm-hmm. I literally had no idea I didn't even think it was possible because my mom, that whole sex part of me, even though she knows I'm a sexual person, as like all my family is, she didn't know I was going to sex parties. She didn't know like what my sex life is like. Like I was a good kid.
Yeah.
And so then to go and be like, hey, I'm making all this money online, like posting my nudes and stuff. She's like, what the fuck? How long have you been doing this for? So it was a big leap for me. But I wanted to tell her once I had already made enough money to support myself. Because at the time I was in school, I was working at a homeless shelter, but that was just paying for my expenses and she was paying for my rent. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to make sure I had enough money that I could pay my own rent and I would be good. So by the 4th month, I had like way more than I expected. And
what was her reaction?
Well, the first 2 days, she literally thought I went crazy. Because like it was all this information that I hadn't shared with her. Like I kept my sex life very private from her. All of that like really kinky stuff.
Yeah.
So she thought I went crazy for like the first 2 days and was like, I think you need help. Like, is something wrong? Are you having a psychotic break? And then she realized really fast, like, because I had these conversations with her. Like I would just let her talk and I would listen and answer honestly. And she started to realize I'm still the exact same person that I was last week or 2 years ago. This is just a thing I'd never shared with her before. And she started to realize that, like, because I knew what I was doing. So I knew I'd have more money. I'd have more time. So we started being able to go on walks and runs together all the time because I wasn't studying like every second of every day. I had money to take her out to dinner or help her with things or help her with my brother's tuition.
But this was before you knew you were going to do a full career. Were you still?
No, this was when so once I told her, I was like, I was only going to tell her when it was like,
you're like, there's no med school.
Yeah. So
there's no doctor. Like, I'm not going to go the 9 to 5 route. Because I feel like once you go there, it's hard to come back.
Yeah.
And obviously we'll get into the stigma and all of that shit. But it's true. Like most office jobs or corporate environments are not going to be down with that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, I decided after like the 2nd month how much money I made. I was like, okay, at least I'm going to take a year off from going to med school because I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. I took the MCAT just because I had it scheduled. And after that, I was like, you know what? I for sure don't want to go. I had all my applications ready too, and I was about to pay $500 to send each one of them in. And I was like, why am I wasting this money if I don't want to do this?
Yeah. And you're making
and I could always go.
A doctor makes in a year anyway.
Yeah, I make a lot more than my mom. But it really, at the time, like I never thought I would make this much money. I was making good money back then, but I never thought I'd make this much money. And I knew like even if, and I made this decision with myself, even if I just make enough to cover rent and food, this is what I want to do. At least for now. I mean, I change my mind like every second. As you can tell, like I went to college for one thing, then I went to more school for another thing, then I went for a whole other thing. So I do like to change a lot. But I knew that this is like a deep fascination with myself. Well, that is like where I feel like I live. Like I love challenging myself, and once I feel bored with something or stuck in something, I I want to try something new. Like challenging myself is really the only thing I think will make me not regret my life when I'm older. And I think about that a lot. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to go into porn too. It's like, I want to look back at my life and know that I really pushed myself and like challenged myself. And it didn't really feel, even though being a doctor is so hard, by the time I was applying for med school, I was like, this doesn't feel like a challenge anymore because I know I can do it. Like if I stick it out, if I had the drive in me still to do it, I know I could. And then that was like, okay, well, what's something I don't know if I could do? Like what's something I really want to prove to myself I could do? It's like being a porn star isn't as cut and dry as like, you know, just studying what your teacher tells you to study and putting in the hours. Because I'm good at studying. Like I know how to do that.
Entrepreneurial.
It's a huge risk. Yeah.
Huge risk socially.
Exactly.
It's a huge risk. Yeah, for many reasons, which I do want to like deeper dive.
And that's what makes me feel so alive, is because when you do these kind of things, like for me at least, I love observing how other people react. I like, you just learn so much.
Is there something addicting about it? Like
I
not
think
the
I
actual sex, but like the career of
Yeah, I think I might be addicted, not like to porn, but because I've been this way with different things my whole life. Yeah. I think I'm addicted to that feeling of like, I love to move every couple years. I'm addicted to this feeling of challenge. I really
adrenaline.
am. Yeah, like I really like having a challenge that is like you can't back out of, you know, like something life-changing and life-altering, like moving or changing career paths. And I've always been that way. It's probably why I had sex at 13. I was like, let's just like alter my life forever and make a big like life decision. So I mean, I don't know if you could necessarily call it addiction because maybe I don't get withdrawals from it and stuff, but I would say that it is my personality type by far.
It's chasing something, and I feel similar to that, not with maybe sex so much, but I am like, I would jump out of an airplane. I'm the first one to like, I'm very adventurous, like almost to a fault.
Yeah.
And I'm drawn towards people who I date or even best friends of mine can like match that energy.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, oh, let's jump over the fence that says do not enter when we're like on a trip. That's
exactly.
kind of like that.
I do have, and I come from a long line of adrenaline junkies on both sides of my family.
Which is interesting to think about, like the psychology behind it. And like, yeah, we don't obviously know everything about ourselves.
Right.
But it's like, it's something we're figuring out.
Yeah, no. And that's I think my biggest fascination is like how much I can learn about myself. And you really learn a lot about yourself when you put yourself in brand new environments.
And just by doing it.
Yeah, by doing new shit all the time.
So what was Dad's reaction? And how did Dad find out?
So I already, by the time I started doing OnlyFans, I hadn't talked to my dad in like 3 months because my dad and I used to be really close. I was a super daddy's girl. And then my parents had a really bad divorce when I was in high school, in college, that lasted like 4 years.
Like a nasty one.
Yeah, like he hid all the money overseas and left my mom with nothing.
And I read somewhere that he was cheating on her.
Yeah, and then he married a younger woman that was similar to my age, that he had been, cheating on my mom with. And she's actually awesome for him, and like they're cute together. But he started a whole new family basically. And
does he have more kids?
He has one kid now, yeah, with her. And that was all fine, but he's always been like he's just not really a parent personality. You know what I mean? Like my mom was the parent. My dad was kind of struggling always with his own demons and his own things and not very reliable. Like he'd say, he'd agree to pay for my college tuition for certain things, but then he wouldn't pay it until like 3 months late. And so I'd be dealing with all these things, like not being able to sign up for classes or like getting all these notices, and he wouldn't answer me for 3 months, and then he would just pay it. And then it was like, constant chaos like that. Mm-hmm. And so getting money from him was always kind of tied to this manipulation as well, as like, if he gave me money, he'd only give me money if like I agreed with him, even down to like where we go to dinner.
Hold it over your head.
Yeah, exactly. So then there was a point where I was like, I'm just going to keep, because I didn't have any money and my mom didn't have any money after the divorce. I had a little bit of money to support myself in LA working in a homeless shelter, but that was it. And so I was like, until he tells me no to pay for school and everything, he was paying half my rent too at the time in LA. And
dad has a lot of money.
Dad has a lot of money.
I'm understanding.
Yeah.
But dad hoards the money.
Yeah, he's in finance too.
A little bit of financial manipulation.
Yeah.
For control.
Yeah. So he was like paying half my rent and my school fees. And I was like, I'm just going to keep asking, you know, and keep accepting it until he tells me no, because I'm a daddy's girl. Like, he's never been able to tell me no his whole life. And so he just kept paying. And then one month, like, instead of saying no to me, because I was expecting him to pay the rent that month, he just ghosted me for like 3, maybe 4 months. And I was like, okay, well, this is as good of a no as I'm going to get. Like, he's never going to tell me no. He's just going to fucking bail. And so then my mom started paying for it all. And I at the time, I really didn't think that that made me, you know, that motivated me to do OnlyFans. But looking back, I think that's probably why, like, when money started coming in from OnlyFans, like, I was like, oh, make a little bit of money for med school. I mean, that's probably why I even started that. Because
it's newfound freedom.
Yeah, it's true freedom.
It's also like self-respect to not, and especially if you're saying like your dad is the type or was, emotionally, psychologically, to hold that over you. It's kind of like, okay, I don't have to listen to you anymore. It's
so freeing. And whereas if I went to medical school, like 10 more years of you know, money from like debt and loans and money from my mom that stresses her out and having to deal with that manipulation from my dad.
Oh, it makes sense.
Yeah. So that was one of the factors probably. But so I wasn't talking to my dad already, and then I would talk to him here and there for the next like year and a half. And he just never, he's like not a parent type. So he never even asked me what I was doing. Like, he'd be like, oh, nice apartment. But he wouldn't like even ask like what I'm doing with my life. So your parents, they don't
speak at all?
Not at all. Okay, yeah.
They hate each other.
Yeah. And but then recently he's figured out, and he sent me a long message being like, I don't care, like, I'm fine with it. Because also my dad he's a partier, like, he's very open to things, like, he's yeah, I guess I should explain that better. He doesn't have a lot of judgment at all. Like, when I was young too, like, I think he sees women very sexually as well, probably, which, like, when I was young, he would buy me like high motorcycle boots and mini skirts. He would take my friends out at like 13 and 14 clubbing.
Stop.
Yeah.
Your
like
dad taking you guys out clubbing?
Yeah. So like he's not somebody that's going to sit like on a high horse and be like, oh, you shouldn't do porn. Like, he's not going to judge.
He would like fuck one of your friends?
Probably, if he wasn't married. I think now that he's getting older and he has this young wife, I think he's going to hopefully he's going to be loyal this time, because like,
did you
don't get that many tries
at all when they got divorced?
No, not at all, because I had known for a long time my parents were going to get divorced, because they are like two type A personalities that just butt heads. And I was very happy because my mom would have stayed with him forever, and like seeing her get emotionally crushed and abused was so hard for me. So even though the divorce was like the most chaotic, terrible thing ever, because of how he treated her during it, was so good for them. Like, it needed to happen. She's so much happier now. So I don't think, and he was there my whole childhood as well. Like, I was in college when they started to divorce. My brother, I think, deals with some abandonment issues because my dad cut them off when he was still in high school.
Okay.
But for me, and my dad kept paying for me all the way until even post grad school. So I think I don't have abandonment as much. And I do look up to my dad in a lot of ways, like how he goes after what he wants and how he lives his life. So I've learned a lot from him. I mean, I think I knew that was kind of always, that's common. But I think that it makes like sense
weird
to me.
To you, or it's totally
No, I mean, I think it's normal because, like, first of all, seeing their relationship makes me realize that it's way better than my parents' relationship was.
Totally.
Even though my parents are literally like the exact same age, my dad's maturity level is closer to like the 30-year-olds that he hangs out with anyway. And so they get along really well. Like, they have a good relationship. It works for them. So I guess that probably taught me that age doesn't really matter that much. It's more about like how you can, if your relationship dynamics work. But also, like, going to high school in London, you see really fast that it's a lot of old, unattractive men with young, pretty women. Like, that is just a fact of life.
Extreme anxiety. Like, I was talking about this with my friend Dean, who works on the podcast with me. So my dad is 70 and I don't think he would like me talking about this publicly, so sorry, Dad. But he's getting married in April. My mom died when I was a little girl, and he's never been remarried, and he is marrying someone very close to my age. And people ask me all the time, like my friends and people who are close to me in my life and know that information, like, is that weird? Like, how does that affect you? Does it like creep you out?
Yeah.
This, that, or the other?
How do you feel about it?
I feel totally fine. Ultimately, I want him to be happy, and like it has no effect on my life. Also, they're not going to have kids. I know that. So I'm like, it literally doesn't affect me at all. I think if they had kids and other things, then maybe I would feel differently. But it's really allowed me to take a step back and examine like a lot of internal bias and this anxiety and fear of like when I get older and I age out of kind of being like the sexiest, hottest version of myself just as a woman aging, that like, why is my dad who's 70 like gonna marry someone who's like 30? Whereas like when I'm probably in my 40s, like
they're gonna trade you in.
It's true though.
Yeah.
And so do you have that fear ever?
Weirdly, no. And I think though that that's specifically because I'm a relationship girl, and I always have. So I go from long-term relationship to long-term relationship because I love deep love and deep connection. And I've always just felt like real deep love really doesn't matter how you look or anything. And I've never identified really as a sexy woman. Like there's been parts during my sexual journey where I was like, oh, I have a lot of sexual power. But I always...
Well, you're like, we're both like our peak desirability.
Peak desirability, right? But
no,
then
it's
I'm
true.
like...
And I just wonder if you get anxiety ever that like once in 20 years, are you going to still feel this way?
I weirdly don't have anxiety about it. Also, I don't know why, but I just feel like when you find somebody that you're really truly in love with and you share this connection, it's so much deeper than age or how you look or anything. And I've always believed that. And so I've never really worried about it. And I'm very, very aware that this is just what life is. Like we live and then we die, and we're in the constant process of our bodies dying. And I've just always been really aware of that. So I know like my aging is going to happen regardless. And I find it kind of beautiful to just see what it's like to experience that. Like maybe it will be super amazing to experience what it's like to become socially less valuable based off my appearance and like see what that's like.
So much fucking anxiety.
Because the thing about me too, if that means maybe my life is going to become a disaster when I'm not super hot anymore, but that will be very interesting. Like, to me. So
that's just something I feel like my friends and I just turned 27.
I totally understand it too.
And I feel like especially like my social media presence, like I've had it since I was 16. Like, and I used to have like, I just would get a lot of press also about the fact that I looked really young. I mean, I still look pretty young, but like I looked really young when I was like 21, and I would post like sexually explicit stuff. And it's interesting what I found really empowering back then, and Emily Ratajkowski talks about this a lot. As I get older, I don't know if I feel the same way. And I wonder if you ever feel that. Like what I thought was empowering, now as I get older, I'm like, do I feel the same way? Yeah,
because we evolve and change, and like what is thrilling to us and feels really like rule breaking and amazing can feel that way at one point, and then when you've been doing it for years, you're like, oh, you're a totally different person. You've already done that. You need something different that ignites you. But I do completely understand that, especially when it's like your brand. But I also think that the reality of human nature is once they make connection with you, it's very hard to break that. Like when you have a true connection with somebody, whether it's like your fan base or a lover, it's not broken by looks. Like a true, real love and connection and valuable like relationship. So
do you feel like you have that with your fans, that it goes beyond looks with all of them?
I don't think I do now, no, because this is just like this chapter of me doing porn, right? So I think I have some people for sure. Like I make porn for the people who are like me, that are fascinated with sex. And so those type of people I think will probably continue to consume anything I put out with value as long as I continue to do that, because we have a similar mindset and a similar like fascination with exploring eroticness, I guess, in the world. But then there's other people who just watch me because I'm hot, or like they like how my face looks, or I look like their ex-girlfriend and they want to like pretend, you know, they're still fucking them. But that's just life, right? Like you make money off a lot of different people, and you come across a lot of different people. But I hopefully will challenge myself enough to like pivot in the future, right? And like pivot and flex into something new that I want to try when I am done doing this. But I think I'll always sex will be my life forever. But how I monetize it and how I spend my day to day and what type of content I make, I think is constantly going to flex, and we'll just see how it goes. Like even right now, a lot of women are starting to follow me, which I didn't plan on. Like it was always men. And so now I'm kind of, and that's because of the content I've been flexing, and like I've been putting out more videos of me talking about sexual health and just my experience. And so it's constantly changing.
Riding the wave of it.
Yeah, it's constantly changing.
Yeah, I guess, you know, obviously this is working for you.
Yeah.
Like financially,
Yeah.
morally, ethically.
Yeah.
And like you're young, you're beautiful.
Yeah.
And I just think like, but like in 10, 15 years down the line, like, I think about it even with my own career and my own life. Like once I've kind of aged out of being sexually desirable societally, which is fucked up that women have to feel that way.
Yeah.
Why can a dude who's like in his 70s marry, you know, a young girl, but like when I'm 50, probably like no, you know, like a guy who's even my same age is going to be like wanting a younger woman. And it's not always like that.
No, yeah.
But
I totally get it. And I should have more anxiety about it, but just the way I look at it is like the person who you're meant to be with and the people you're meant to spend your time with are going to be the ones that are most similar to you and that don't do that. You know, like they're going to be into you.
But does it make you nervous financially?
One, no, because I've already like saved a lot of my money and I'm putting a lot of it away. Yeah. And then two, I think there's always money to be made in the world. And I do feel very capable doing that as long as I feel smart enough to observe patterns in society and see ways I can make money. Like even if maybe I'm not always the richest, maybe I won't always be making this amount of money, I do feel like there's always a way to add value and make enough money to live. Totally.
What about like self-esteem though? Like having the constant, you know, like validation and all these people being attracted to you and being like, I saw some comment on your Instagram from yesterday that was like, I want to like kiss your feet. Like, you know, all this stuff. Like, what if that kind of dissipates one day as we get older,
I feel more hate than, even though like it's crazy because there's a lot of love too. Yeah. I feel more hate from people than anything these days. Like I have always felt really like beautiful and desirable. And now I constantly like see comments that just absolutely dislike how I look and everything. So I've never, and that doesn't affect me honestly, because I'm very like, I love who I am. I love how I look. I look a lot like my grandma, which I love. But I don't like, I think a lot of girls are like, oh, when you get into porn, like it's just constantly men thinking you're hot. But really it's like, especially like you were talking about on TikTok. It is.
TikTok's fucking mean, you guys.
You like this job is
as hell.
80% bullying and from people who don't understand you, and 20% love from people who do love and understand you.
How do you deal with that?
I don't read the comments. Like sometimes I do, and I go through phases where I do, and slowly my mental health just goes, which is so crazy because I stop feeling like myself, like I fully will lose myself. And then only recently in the last 2 months have I come back from that and been like, all right, I got to be stricter about not reading the comments because I'm starting to lose myself completely. Because when you have all those other opinions in your head, you really can't think clearly about what you actually want to do.
Well, it's also, and I tell people who've dealt with cyberbullying this, or I talk about my own experiences, that it's allowing people who, one, don't know you to have an opinion, and like seeing it in real time coming at you is so not healthy for anyone's like brain. Just genuine, like psychologically, that's not normal. We've never lived in like the history of
like, even if you don't believe it,
for you for them to have access to you in that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they literally can eat your brain out without you even knowing it. Like you don't, and I didn't necessarily understand how that was until I experienced myself. Like I saw celebrities getting lots of hate or saying like the bullying really hurts, but then they're like the Kardashians and you're like, oh, but your life is so nice, who cares? And then you realize that once it happens to you, that no matter if you believe it or not, just seeing it will slowly start to erode your brain. And months later, you'll be in a position where you don't even know your own personality anymore because you're constantly plagued with these thoughts, because your brain is wired to take in what's around you and pivot based off of that, right? Like for survival. And so it's hard for the brain to be like, oh, this looks bad, this looks bad, this sound you make is bad. Like
people hate me, people think I need to
I'm
do
annoying.
This
the worst is people think I'm annoying.
Really?
And then
people will say that?
Well, yeah, like yeah, I mean, I think probably everybody gets it, because someone will think anyone's annoying, right?
Yeah.
And so when you see something where someone thinks you're annoying, then you're like, oh my God, when I go to share myself and I'm genuinely happy, or I'm sharing my interests, or I'm talking, like I can't avoid being annoying. And that is the worst.
But you're not annoying.
No, I'm not. And most people, like no one is annoying. Everybody's going to find somebody that they're, don't like or are annoyed at, but they're just not the person for you. And that's also not why I went in this job, is to like win over everybody or make content for everybody. I didn't even go into this job to like normalize sex work. Like I went into this to find people who are similar to me and be part of a community of people that, are already fascinated with the same thing as me, or people maybe who make content for people who are fascinated. It's just something you have, like maybe you're born with it or you develop it. You have a fascination for the erotic and like the deep, whether you can act on that or not, whether you can leave your job and actually like act on it, whether you can have sex in the way that you want to have sex or not. You still know if you have that fascination when you see, see or hear certain things that ignite that deep fascination. And so I have always connected with that type of people, and that's the people I make content for. And it's just part of the job that I have to share my stuff on the internet where everyone can access it, even the people that, I don't make the content for.
And
I've had to accept
people who
that.
don't even really follow you and like they just want to be haters. I had someone on the podcast actually the other day who he's an artist and he teaches at like RISD, but he studies troll psychology.
Whoa.
Like fully like does like research and studies. And it's one of my favorite podcasts.
I have
episodes.
to watch that.
I need to send it to you.
Yeah.
It was really, really interesting. And as someone who's been trolled like really heavily and like had some really bad situations that like made me suicidal and just like craziness online, it was interesting to sit down, and he was just telling me like a lot of the time they're on the spectrum, a lot of the time like, they're trolling a system and like a greater thing because they're unhappy with their life, and like real things that he's studied and put together. That's like so cool. Hundreds of hours of work. And
yeah, because it's not like as simple as like people who hate on the internet are bad people.
Nothing's as black and white in this world. And that's why I have people from all different corners of and on the spectrum of just life on this podcast. And people will get mad at me being like, oh, if you're having this person on, then you have an agenda and you're giving them a platform. And I'm like, no, I think we live in a society where we don't have enough conversations like this. And I want to have anyone and everyone and give you the opportunity to speak your truth, and then people who are listening to the podcast can form their own opinions.
Exactly, because we learn, like you learn from everything, from all types of people, and the more people you experience and the more opinions you see, the more you learn and the more well-rounded of an individual you are.
100%. And also that's how you figure out what your opinions are. And I say this all the time. I'm like, if I don't converse with people who have different opinions, thoughts, feelings, I never truly know why the fuck I believe the things I do.
Exactly. Yeah, I so agree with that.
Like if I was sitting here and I'm super conservative and I'm like, I don't believe in the porn industry, I don't believe in OnlyFans, like your body is sacred for just your husband, whatever the fuck. If I don't sit down with someone who you're like, no, that may work for you, but sexually, like I really connect with people or whatever we've been saying on the show or this episode today, it's like that. Then I'm like, okay, well, actually, this is why I feel this way. Yeah. And like you start to realize why you feel so strongly and like what those opinions are.
Because even if you did that, right, and you were like, I don't agree with all this, and then you weren't open to like hear me talk, I would still go on existing. The porn industry would still go on existing. All these people would still be existing in the world. You would just be unaware of why they do it. And for some people, and some people aren't interested in knowing why people do things. But I am like so deeply interested in human nature that I just love to understand why, because we're not that different. you know? So like even somebody who is absolutely against the porn industry or like, you know, recreational sex, I'm not that different from them. So there is something in all of us that leads us to do these things, similar drives. Like some people, maybe
well, we're also sexual beings, so there's like an innate biological, you know, component here.
Yeah.
Of like, that's how we reproduce. You literally, like, I'm sorry, hello, everyone listening, your parents fucked, and that's how you were born.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some.
I mean, it's
like
it's why we exist. Yeah, like it's literally we die. Like I'm reading this really good book right now, but it's about how like reproducing is, and the act of reproduction is the human acceptance of death, because you wouldn't be reproducing or have a need to reproduce if you knew you weren't going to die, if you knew you weren't like a finite being that was going to end, which I think is so amazing and very true. Like death and sex are absolutely related. And so when you can accept, like anybody who's reproducing is accepting that like their finite existence. And I think like by talking to people that live completely different lives, maybe even why people are so obsessed with like watching documentaries about serial killers, is seeing what their thought process was in those moments, or how they experience these things that we can't even imagine, and what their human brain, which is so similar to ours, was thinking. I think that's fascinating.
I know. I agree with you completely. I mean, that's like why I like to do this. And also just like seeing the humanity in it. Like I love talking to people and then starting to build like, okay, it actually makes sense to me why you, or, you know, whatever happened when you were a kid, or biologically too, you know, it's nurture and nature. I think there's a mixture of the two that got you to this point today. Do you feel empowered by your career choice and job?
Yeah, I really do. Not as much like I don't ever take into the opinion of the public, because it's constantly changing and I don't even know what it is anyway. But I have always felt empowered because it's something like I am just deeply fascinated with, and I'm so freaking proud of myself that I did it. Like I remember wanting to do it so bad in the like 2 months where I was having panic attacks every night, being like, this is what I want to do, but with our life, should we do the things we want to do, or is there an end point to where it then will ruin your life? You know, like if you do what you want to do, is that helpful and will you benefit, or will you not be able to get apartments and loans because people don't like your job like choice or your industry? Yeah, the stigma. Like, will the stigma ruin my life, and should I do the things that I am supposed to do? Or else will like society ruin my life? And I was literally having panic attacks every night about that until I was finally like, fuck it. I've done my research and I have to jump off the cliff at some point. And I'm so proud of myself that I did. Like every single day I look back and I'm like, how were you so strong and so smart? I have no idea how I managed that. But do
you have tips for anyone who's listening who maybe they themselves are dealing with the fear of social stigma, and perhaps it's not about OnlyFans or sex, it could be any aspect of their life,
like taking a chance on yourself, taking a risk? I would say, one, do your research. Like, don't go into anything willy-nilly. But once you've done that, it's really about a commitment to yourself. Like, it's really every single time I move or change career paths, it's like, I am going to make this work. Like, I'm going to put in the hard work and I'm going to make it happen regardless of like what the challenges are. So if you go into something new knowing it's going to be challenging, but knowing that's what you want to do, you'll make it work. Like you really will. And I think maybe I've always thought that because my parents always taught me that I'm capable of doing anything in the world as long as I observe and I'm smart and I work hard. Like I put in the time and have grit, right? They say you can be successful at anything in life if you just have grit and resilience. So if you know that you can, you know, push yourself to be resilient even through like the constant ups and downs of doing something that you love, then go for it. Like it's the most thrilling, amazing thing in your life. And you'll look back and be so proud of yourself that you made life happen for yourself.
Yeah. Have you ever had moments of regret?
I literally don't regret anything ever, which is crazy, but it's because of like, I think how I look at life, which is that it's a constant learning opportunity and there's no real such thing as failure. But I have had low points where I'm like, oh my God, is this the end? And then is this not going to work out for me anymore? Do I have less control than I thought? Am I less capable than I thought? And then for every low, there's always a higher high. But also for every low, there's always a lower low.
What are some examples of these lows?
Especially since porn, financially, has been the biggest thing where I experienced an up. At first I was like, wow, I'm making money. And I knew a dip would come because porn is extremely unstable. If any entrepreneurial job is unstable, but especially porn, there's just certain months it's going to be better. It's going to rely on if you go viral or not. It's going to rely on your marketing. And
that's going to rely on if people have extra money to spend.
Exactly.
And, the economy,
like November,
things that are just bigger than you.
No, not November. Lowest month every time, which is also my birthday
Really?
month. So that's kind of sad. But yeah, it's crazy. So I remember hitting my first low and being like, oh my God, is it ever going to go back up? Is it just going to keep going down? But of course, and then, with TikTok, you're getting views for a while and you're doing well. And then all of a sudden you get no views or your account gets deleted. Because I've been deleted on Instagram 3 times, Twitter once, TikTok 20 times. So say I get my account deleted, then it's oh my God, I have to restart from nothing with no fans. And my income's going down and my views are going down. And then that's why I committed early on, just post one TikTok every single day, whether it's a brand new account, whatever, just keep doing the same thing every day, even if it's for no people,
treat it
whatever.
like a job. It's your
career. And then eventually, of course, it would go right back up again. You'll always look back and be like, I'll never go viral again. I don't have any good ideas. But if you just post every day and force yourself to, eventually it will go up again. And every single time I've had a low, I've always gone immediately up to a higher high. Whether it took a week or 2 months, it always goes back up. And that really comes down to faith and grit once again, sticking through the lows.
Internalize those lows or in the dips, do you ever feel oh my God, so they're hard. Not sexually attracted to me anymore, or people aren't into me? I have my own paranoia and anxieties where I'll feel people don't like my messaging anymore. Pivoting to mental health.
Yeah.
I'm irrelevant.
It's just so hard when you're getting feedback every single day.
The loop. And I'm this is so not healthy. So sometimes I just have to take a break and I turn my phone
and
off.
come back to what you're actually just interested in. Because that's all
I'm
you can really give.
I'm a fucking person and the people who are around me matter.
Exactly.
But how do you deal with that?
It is so freaking hard to not get in your head when things are going badly. But when you do that, you skew all your thinking, you can't only think when you're feeling confident. You got to also think when you're not feeling confident. So I made a life decision really early on, and I constantly reinstate this life decision for myself that I'm just going to keep going regardless, and that's, I think, what gets you through it. It's if you have writer's block and you just sit there and don't write, you don't make any progress. Whereas my professors in college always told me just word vomit onto a page then for pages and pages and pages, even if it sucks. Just do it even if it sucks, because it'll get you to a new place that you weren't at anyway. And so I constantly just, in the lows, instead of listening to myself, I go, okay, a year ago I made the decision to post every single day. Doesn't matter what it is, just make myself do it and get through today, and maybe tomorrow it'll be better. And not if I second guess myself while it's on the low, then I might make the decision to quit. But a year ago, I told myself, don't quit. For every low, there's a higher high. Post every single day. And so I just shut my brain off and I listened to those decisions that I made, and you get through it. And you get through every low. And that is what makes a successful person at whatever you do, right? And my parents always told me that, is people will quit. They didn't make their money till they were 45, 50, really. And a lot of people will quit before that, 37 maybe. They're oh, I'm not doing that well. This is too hard. Let me just go pick something safer. And they were if you want something, you got to work for it for a long time. And a lot of people are going to peel off and die off. And the successful are the ones that stuck it out. So that's just how I look at life. I just got to push through the lows.
Do you feel your self-esteem kind of boomerangs with that?
Yeah.
Do
every
you
time
attach your self-esteem to kind of the followers or the views or people being into you? Because it's you're constantly being bombarded with this information.
It is hard not to. So it's hard, your self-esteem will always kind of take a dip when something doesn't do as well as it should have. Especially in the beginning when you're getting lots of views and then you don't get any. Or once you get a lot of views, you're oh my God, I'm amazing at this. But then next week, of course, you're going to get no views, or you're going to get shadow banned, or you're going to get an account deleted. And then you're oh my God, I'm fucking suck at this. And so then you're literally living a bipolar lifestyle. luckily for me, I mean, it's impossible not to feel that a little bit, but I've always had a confidence and self-esteem far beyond like my looks. And I also do look at social media as like a tool
Just to make
for,
money.
you know, for marketing. It's not as much a platform that reflects who I am as a person or reflects, you know, my social value.
So you feel like you can separate the two.
Yeah, completely. And that is 100% because I got to go to college and study what matters to me in life. I would have never, ever, ever been able to handle any of this if I hadn't gone to college. Like, I would have never even picked this career path. I would have never been brave enough. But now at this point, I can recognize that, you know, I am myself and I love myself and I'm best friends with myself, even if I literally have nothing. And after realizing that and really like feeling that inside myself years ago, it allows me to just take so many risks and really put myself into any environment, even where I feel uncomfortable or even where I feel like an absolute failure, and still be happy with it and still find like some kind of message or meaning from it. I know.
Really well said.
I mean, it sounds so easy. Like, I guess when I say that, like, it sounds like it just comes naturally to me, but it really doesn't. Like, the last 2 months, like, it's a constant struggle and it's really hard work. The last 2 months, I was like, oh my God, have I fully lost myself? Like, have I lost it? Like, is all my rhetoric and my beliefs, are they all gone? But of course it came back, you know, like now I feel better again. And I think that's just life. And my mom has always taught me that too. Thank God.
You have to ride the wave of
you
the ups.
always are going to have ups and downs. Like in school, there would be weeks where I couldn't even type. Like I couldn't even get an essay done. Like I just couldn't do it. I had no inspiration. And then there'd be weeks where I would get everything done and felt so inspired. And I really do feel like that is just life. And we have to just ride out the lows and let them happen and embrace them and really enjoy the highs when you have them too. Like really appreciate them and know they're not going to last forever.
You mentioned briefly before we started the podcast, just when we were chatting, that when you share more of your personality on TikTok or Instagram, whatever, and then people hate on it, you take it more personally than if it's just what you look like or the sex.
And that is why I recently had this kind of like really lost feeling, is because about a year ago, maybe even a little less, I was like, one of my accounts was about to get deleted and I was like, screw it. I don't care what I post on this anymore. No one sees it. It's shadow banned. So I just started answering comments, like actually talking with my voice. So instead of sharing these like well thought out, really witty, sexual, like boundary pushing, like meme TikToks, I started just talking about the industry and what I've learned since I've been in it. And I got so many views on those videos, like millions. I think one of them from that first day got like 10 million views within a day or two. And I was like, oh my God, people love me talking about this. And that was the moment that I also got an influx of girls. Like for the first time ever, girls started following me. And so then since then, I've been able to share myself more. Like that was the first time I really started sharing, you know, my opinions and my insight and how I look at the world. And now it's been almost a year of that. And the opinions from people totally have affected me like I didn't expect. Because I didn't have that kind of interaction with people on, like they didn't see my personal self until then. And so now after a year of people commenting on things that, you know, on what I believe and my opinions and how I live my life and things that are deeply personal to me, like the internet, I already knew it ruins everything good. Like anything you put out there that is good, there will be someone to ruin it. And I try to apply the same kind of thinking that I did to my old stuff. Because I used to get crazy hate before that, like intense hate. But it was for fun. It was what I wanted. I wanted hate because it would blow up. But then when you share yourself and you get hate, you're like
the bear.
So basically, yeah, that was like a whole new challenge for me. And I had hoped it wouldn't be, but it was. And it took a big toll on me for the last 2 months mentally. And I thought at certain points, like, I'd never get out of it. But you always do. And that's why my advice to everybody and my parents' advice to me is to have resilience. Like, don't make big career decisions when you're in a low. Just push through the low based off of everything you've taught yourself from before. And I I knew what I had to do. I started to start exercising again to feel like myself, because when I run, it's very meditative for me and I connect with myself and all my stress and anxiety and cloudiness goes away. When I read, especially when I read philosophy, I feel so much more confident and calm and I lose my anxiety. So I've been running a lot and I've been reading a lot, and I went to go see my mom. I went to go see my friend Hannah. I've been doing things that I have known for years makes me feel like myself again.
Happy.
Yeah. And so now I've reconnected with the things I'm interested in instead of, taking in all the opinions of the internet.
Totally. Do you see a therapist or like what?
No, I used to see a therapist. I've gone to multiple. Like in high school, my parents forced me to go, which was the best thing that they ever did. I literally loved my therapist.
During the divorce.
Yeah. I actually know before the divorce. But my parents were definitely rocky back then. And then I saw a therapist during the end of their divorce and during also the beginning of me starting porn, because I was like, I need to talk to someone and see if I'm like crazy. Because of course my mom's going to challenge me on everything, but I wanted to talk to somebody else too. Turned out like that didn't help me very much because they just kind of...
Well, they bring their own biases.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was more that she wouldn't challenge me because I know the thing is I'm very steadfast and sure of what I want to do and how I think. And someone like my mom really can challenge me, like really can. And that's what I was looking for with a therapist. Like I wanted someone to give me all of the negatives and all the reasons why I shouldn't. Whereas they were kind of like, it seems like, you know what you want and maybe it's different from what society wants and blah, blah. But like, you've done your research, and they basically reaffirmed what I already knew that
maybe that's kind of what one brought you to this moment.
Exactly.
So there's a positive to that.
It was
back.
So good. Yeah.
And also ultimately, like, yeah, if you knew in your heart of hearts that I'm doing this for healthy reasons, the right reasons, not because I'm trying to like prove something or get some external validation. Like it sounds like you genuinely like this is how you view life and connection and intimacy. And so I love that.
Yeah, it was,
and that it's working out.
I know.
Do you feel like you would feel the same way if it wasn't as financially like amazing as it's been? Genuinely.
I did not know I could ever make this much money. So now, of course, my sights are set even higher, where I'm like, oh, I'm not making as much as I want to make. But
how much money do you make? Like currently? Because I've seen some numbers when I like Googled it.
So right now, the last like 3 or 4 months, I make about $100K a month.
And
like
it changes,
up or down a little.
Changes
every single month.
Okay.
Like changes like crazy. But lately, it's been about $100K a month. Whereas, of course, like there were times before where I made nearly $300K a month. Yeah. So, but then for me, I live on such a low budget that all of it is more than I need. Like,
and you're putting it away and investing.
Yeah.
In it.
But when I went into this job, I really never expected that I would make this much money. Like that was crazy to me. When I made I made $8,000 on my first month on OnlyFans. I was like, oh my God, I am rich. I am so rich. I was like shocked that I made $8,000. It was the most amount of money that I'd ever had like in my own bank account. And it was all mine. And then I did make that decision, like, even if I just can pay rent and eat, like that's all that matters. I don't know how I'd feel now if I didn't make this much, but also like if my income tanks even more, it's still more than I need. Yeah. So it really all feels like a blessing. And I also know it's not forever. Like I know I'm in an industry where it does go up and down. So you're like, I'm just thankful for what I have.
Yeah, and you're like, let me milk it for what it's worth right now. So you seem to be like, you navigate it as a business.
Exactly. It's a business, and it's like, if you learn about any entrepreneurial business, this is what it's like. Like there's resources out here to learn how to deal with the ups and downs and the dips and having to be flexible. So that's what I'm trying to follow.
You're owning also like your own content. Or how does OnlyFans work? So we had a lot of questions of just like finances.
Yeah.
How does it work? How many hours do you devote to working? It's not a 9 to 5, no. It's like you're creating, you're marketing it, you're promoting, you're editing, you're
24/7. Like literally, even if I'm not on my phone, I do everything from my phone.
So job isn't turning off. It's like moment you wake up, you're checking the phone to when you go to sleep.
Exactly. Well, even if I'm not on my phone, like I usually do check my phone like morning to night, usually. But even if I'm not on it, I'm thinking of ideas constantly. Like my whole life is constantly thinking of ideas for whether it's a TikTok or like the next steps, like what I'm going to be doing in 4 months from now. You know, that's constantly what I'm thinking about.
And so what are your 4 months plans right now?
Right now, so since I have all these girl fans, I want to make something for them other than like TikToks that keep getting deleted. Like I can't really speak on TikTok for them, which is hard. Like you can hardly talk about sex on there, and I can't monetize it either. So my next plan is YouTube.
Okay.
On top of still doing OnlyFans and Twitter for porn. But I think like I'm going to try out a lot on YouTube. I'm going to do some vlogs. Like, I just started with vlogs because I was already on this trip and I was like, oh, I should just film Vegas. Like that's easy because it'll be fun and it shows my life a little, which people do like my vlogs a lot on TikTok. So I'm going to try vlogging a little bit. I'm also going to try out just a lot of other content, which is hard to do. It's hard to pivot and like make new content for a new site that you don't understand. But it's also, I'm looking at YouTube right now. I realized how I first looked at OnlyFans and TikTok, where I was like, oh, maybe I could just make enough to pay my rent with what I make on it. And just seeing like trying out different types of content and taking it really lighthearted. And so that's exciting for me, trying something new.
Is the biggest kind of money maker though right now is the OnlyFans account?
I only make money on OnlyFans.
Okay.
I've been paid a few times for like shoots outside of, and I did like a little beauty brand, had me shoot with them.
But any videos that are like on Pornhub or stuff like that, is that taken from your OnlyFans?
So I have 2 videos on Pornhub. I have 2 videos only on Pornhub, and they are both ones I did for free with this guy, Alex Adams in Florida, who I just admired his way of shooting porn for so long, and so I just went and shot with him for free.
And you didn't get paid anything?
No, we traded. We do trade. Like we did a content trade where we made a video for me to sell on my OnlyFans, which of course then I can make endless money off of that. But yeah, I didn't get paid for that, and I didn't need to be either because it was such a monetizing
and marketing, like promotional.
Like the amount of money I have continued to make off of that just because it's part of my career path. And it was also just a milestone for me in my career.
And then people find you also off
exactly.
Of that. Yeah, people ask me all the time. They're like, oh, like I don't really understand how do podcasts make money, la-di-da-di-da, or like I've had really big guests and people like talk shit on Reddit about me, being like, she paid so much money to go on Call Her
Daddy. Reading Reddit is literally cancer for your brain, like when it's about yourself. It is so bad.
I really need to not do
Reddit,
that, but it's hard.
Reddit is
I get like email notifications too because I've been doxxed before. Like people post my address and just like dangerous stuff. So I have the notification on and it's like, oh, your name came up here. But yeah, people will be like, oh, she paid so much money to go on that. And I'm like, actually, that's not how it works. Like no one gets paid to go on a podcast because it's press.
Yeah, exactly.
/ like it's unethical in terms of like journalism to pay someone for their like opinions and thoughts. I'm sure there are people who do that, but like anyone who goes in the news and stuff, you're not getting paid.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah,
it's the same as me going on here as my 2 Pornhub videos. It was like I wanted to talk to somebody who I've admired for so long and do something that was just a milestone for me personally as well as my career.
Yeah.
You know, and then also
it kind of
it's like marketing too.
It is marketing. It's total marketing because also then like for example, just me putting out this episode, people who regularly listen to the podcast who maybe don't know your content then will go and find you, and that's like I mean that's how you grow just a podcast. I've learned is all through cross promotion.
And that's like OnlyFans is like that. So you're gonna do a lot of stuff that doesn't make any money. You're gonna post every day on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok or Reddit, and that's all for free. You're gonna do collabs with people that are all for free, but the point is to draw traffic back to the place where people can pay for more of you. Yeah. And it works extremely, extremely well, and you'd be making a lot less money if you only took opportunities that were paid. But yeah, that's my only income because I don't do like brand deals or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, also, as someone who has done a lot of brand deals, there's no stability in that. Like, you're like hot for like a moment, and then they chew you up and spit you out, and then there's the next hot
And it seems like it probably, like I think
it's hard
probably
also to
degrades the trust of your.
It's also hard to not internalize that self-esteem wise of like, oh, why did this brand use me for years and then all of a sudden they don't hire me anymore.
So painful.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, so am I not desirable or I'm not like marketable, and so it's hard to separate those things. And I think that's just difficult being in this industry.
It is.
Anything entertainment wise.
Literally, it's so hard.
Okay. Some questions from followers today. Tips to get a following on OnlyFans?
Mine, do you want me to answer that right now? Mine like the only way I did it was TikTok. I literally posted at least once per day on TikTok. And how I started, like now it's so different because my career has taken so many different turns and I have a following that I like to provide different value to. But really, to make a lot of money and establish myself as even a name at all was very strategic daily posts on TikTok, thinking, okay, how do I make people horny when they see what I post? And then in that moment of horny, go click on my bio and go pay for my OnlyFans. So it's all about making content. And that's what I tell every girl that's like, how do I do it? What do I post on TikTok? Even my friends that are in the industry, I'm like, I see you spending a lot of time sharing like, you know, about your personal life and your beliefs and what you ate that morning, and you're getting 1 or 2 likes on it. And you're like, why is this not helping my OnlyFans? And it's not going to. Like maybe if you're a celebrity already, but it's really about like, you have to be smart about it and be like, how do I make something that one provokes people so that it keeps getting shared, maybe gets hate so that more people comment, because people are more motivated to comment hate than they are love. So you'll get more comments if people hate it, and then it will be shared to more people. And how do I also in that time make them horny so that they go pay for my OnlyFans? And if you can do that and just keep trying at it every single day, you'll make a name for yourself.
Welcome to
money.
Stella's masterclass.
Exactly. It's literally about looking at the patterns of how to blow up, seeing other girls also like that are blowing up,
and see what they're doing.
Exactly.
That's good. That's good advice. Okay.
Yeah.
Someone wrote in saying like, how can I start one without pre-existing clout? So you're kind of telling them like, you have to create the clout. Like I always, even with my podcast, Instagram now, I've been like a little bit active on TikTok. It's not my favorite platform personally, but it's like you have to diversify. Because even like I think about like Instagram could be gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
I've had my account deleted before.
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, if I didn't have a website or didn't have a podcast, or for you, it's like your OnlyFans, whatever it is, then you don't want that you don't want all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. Which my eggs are kind of all in one basket right now, but it's okay. But no, how do you start without clout? Like I literally started, I had no social media. I had hardly been on social media for a couple years. I had no followers on all these brand new accounts I made. And I literally just started sharing on TikTok. And that's how you make it. Like you create it if you don't have it yet. You just start sharing and getting views and traffic and making people horny. But then I also have other friends, like my friend Hannah started OnlyFans. And then only a year after she started OnlyFans, she started a TikTok. So she had no clout, no followers, hardly made any money on OnlyFans that first year. And then she saw me making TikToks and making a lot off of it. And so she started following what I do. And I hadn't even met her yet. And now now she has, you know, really loyal followers and what I guess some would call clout. So yeah, you create the clout. Like a lot of people are like, well, you already had like followers.
No, you have to put in the work.
Yeah, you just got to start. Everyone starts from nowhere, honestly.
How does the payment work? Like, do banks accept OnlyFans payment? In your experience, have you found that like financial advisors are like down to help you invest it? Like, or do you feel judgment stigma because it's sex work? So
all your money on OnlyFans, right? It comes into like, it's all held on the website. And then after 7 days of it being there, it can be released into your bank account and you can release it how you want. And when it shows up in your bank account, it says Phoenix International, which is like the parent company. So it doesn't like say OnlyFans, but people, I mean, they can figure out. And so I never had any issue with it. Like with Wells Fargo in the US, any normal bank, like you don't tell them, this is what I learned as well, being in the industry from people who are in it, that you don't tell people you do porn or you do OnlyFans. You go in and say, oh, I work in social media, or I have a media company, or I have a production company, or I work in marketing and, you know, I'm self-employed if you're starting a business account.
Which is probably the smarter way to do it.
Yeah, it's
like
so
I run
easy.
all my podcasts.
And if you have a personal account, they don't even ask you. Like if you go to Wells Fargo and just open a personal account, they don't even ask what you do. It's fine. But the first time I really experienced any issues was in Puerto Rico. None of the banks would start a business account for me because they didn't support my line of business. And I got so many emails from all these banks turning me away. And I needed a business account to work with my like tax people there and my account service there and my financial advisor. And so it was a real freaking hassle until I finally just did it through like a international bank, because there's a lot of banks that are very like outdated and
And
old
judgmental.
fashioned.
Yeah. But
But
it's like, hello, is not all money good money in terms of like, why isn't it equal?
well, that's what's crazy is that, I mean, it is so crazy to me that
It's not like drugs.
we still like it's legal money that we have to pay taxes on, and yet we can't get a business account to pay those taxes correctly. That being said, though, there is always someone who will take the money. There's always someone who's going to take the porn money, the legal porn money. So you just have to find them. But yeah, with financial advisors, thank God, I've been nervous about it, but my financial advisors and my tax people, they all know what I do. And luckily they all are completely accepting and could care less. But I also maybe got lucky with them.
Have you ever felt like pressure being in the sex industry, in terms of your relationship with your body? Like any body dysmorphic feelings or thoughts? I don't know. I just wonder if you've ever felt pressure to like get your boobs done, lips done, certain things that just like, I feel like people are very vocal on those platforms.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've definitely like heard it from everybody. You know, you get comments about your body all the time that like you have too small of boobs or you're too pale, or for me, my teeth, like I need to get braces. But I really did go into this industry knowing that you can only really succeed if you stand out. But also when you stand out, you're going to get a lot of hate and you're going to provoke people. But you only blow up and actually get like people interested in you if you stand out and provoke people and get hate. So I
think if you
knew
start
that
to
already.
look like everyone else, then
Yeah.
like Chloe Cherry came, I'm friends with her. We literally got dinner
She's
last
so
night.
cool.
But she came on the podcast and she was like, in her experience when she did porn, she was like, natural always won.
Yeah.
She was like, the videos that blew up were always the ones where like the girls had natural boobs. Like that's what the guys were like jacking.
Well, and
off,
Riley
like,
Reid is like the biggest porn star in the industry, and she has tiny boobs, like and a tiny little butt. So, and I think maybe I've always had a lot of guy friends, and like I do know men pretty well, and I spend a lot of my time with men, and sexually I've always known that men like natural girls, like they
there's
like
something more
real people.
Exactly. It's not even
exactly.
the natural, quote unquote, natural girl. To me, it feels more of like, it's not, it's like the girl next door type of thing. You know?
Exactly.
It's
Well, like a real
someone
person.
and someone who's approachable.
Yeah.
Exactly. Versus like looking like a blow up doll.
Yeah, exactly. So like maybe
Seems
you
more
might get
fetishized,
pressure to start looking perfect, but your power is in the fact that you don't look perfect and you do look different from other people. And that's why I can post videos where, yeah, it might blow up because everybody's talking about how terrible my teeth look, but it blows up then
Great
and it
teeth. I
makes
don't know
my
what they're
career.
talking
I mean, I love my teeth, but you know, it's not for everybody and I know that. Or it's like, it just stands out and it's a talking point. And that any talking point that you have.
How do you not take that personal?
I guess because I like it. And I also know human nature. Like human nature, if anything stands out, they will comment on it. And instead of looking at it like, oh, that person's coming from a place of knowledge, you're like, I see.
Yeah.
Or just you see like, oh, they are following the pattern of society that I already laid out. Like I know why I'm posting this and I know what my power is. I know that because I look different, I will get more comments and that will help my career. So if you look at it like, you know, the people commenting aren't like coming from a place where they are the...
It's like no press is bad press. Like,
yeah.
Like people who say really controversial things and then it blows up on Twitter and they get a lot of hate, but then ultimately they're like, I'm cashing the check.
Exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
so you're playing it like a game.
Well, yeah, because it's...
strategically.
Well, that's just how it is, right? Like the person who's commenting that I have bad teeth and I need braces, are they like the decider of what is beautiful in the world? Like, I don't think so. Not at all. And I do think my teeth are really beautiful and I like them.
I think I have clearly lower self-esteem than you do because no, I just like, it's been very, very hard for me to not internalize stuff where I've like backed off a lot.
Whereas I think like I've always looked at you, I've always followed you, like, oh my God, she's so beautiful and she's so perfect. Like I've always thought that. And I remember looking at your content like when I was so young, like literally freshman in college and being like, I wonder what it's like to live your life. Like I think that's our fascination always with people, right? Is you look at their life and you're like, wow, I can't even imagine myself in that environment. And then once you start living that kind of in that same world, you realize, oh, we're all really similar. We're all insecure.
And it's not that, oh my God, I went to a party the other day, like during Fashion Week, to whatever, this famous person's birthday. And I was riding, I just happened to be leaving like 5 a.m. with all of these very, very famous like Instagram girls. Like some of the most followed people on Instagram. They're known as like the hottest, most beautiful girls, like filtered photos, all the shit. And it was a fluorescent lighting in the elevator. And like, to be fair, everyone's leaving at like 5 a.m., you know? But like the lights went on and it was just like, and I was pretty fucked up too, but I was like, I feel like I'm in like a different dimension right now. Like the lights went on, like everyone had really bad skin and like wearing so much caked on makeup and just like all the stuff. And I was like, wow, just nothing is as it seems. And it's like, ultimately I'm like, oh, I feel for these girls because you're on a platform and there is so much hate. So it's like, of course I understand why you're wearing makeup, but then it's ultimately like, are you feeding into that and then making other women feel more insecure? And it's like this societal dance.
And I think no matter what, I think even if Instagram didn't exist or anything, I think that will always exist. Like people always will look at other people and think like they're better than me. They have clearer skin than me. Their life's easier than me. They don't struggle with insecurity and I do. They're just somehow capable. Like when I saw, you know, when I found you online, I was like, how was she brave enough to do this? Like, and be entrepreneurial. It's like, you can't even imagine what that would be like for yourself. And then you realize like, you are very much capable of that too. Like we are all human and very similar, more similar than I think a lot of us think. And we all could be living the same life as somebody else that we see around us, whether it's better or worse. We are like a hair away from living that life. And you're very capable of it as well. So like, yeah, all the girls that you see that are perfect, like you are not as different from them as you think. They all, like, we all know at this point, we all have acne. We all have skin texture. We all have insecurities. Like we all have really ugly days.
Nothing is as it seems.
Nothing. No.
Like, yeah, I mean, social media is just kind of fake. It is.
Exactly. And humans too. Like, I don't think humans can exist without wearing a mask.
You're also just not perfect all the time. Like I could have a day where I feel like super fucking hot and like, oh, I'm like, I smell good and like my hair is perfect and I whatever just did this and this and I feel really good, just got my nails done. And then like literally 2 days later I could be like, I'm on my period, I'm so bloated.
Yeah. Like, and you're like, oh, everybody like thinks of me.
I just got a pimple, like blah, blah, blah.
Right. And you think everybody, once you start having social media, it's like, oh, everyone knows me as the hot one, the hot version of myself.
That's where I had to really do a shift for purpose because I felt like my mental health was so like trying to put on this display of perfection and knowing that my life and my self-esteem and mental health wasn't matching that was making me feel very split identity wise. And so when I started to be more vulnerable and talk about like, hey, I really struggle with super like debilitating anxiety and I've been very depressed and I spend time in the hospital and I take meds every day to like be a stable normal person. And now your career is like benefiting from that. Totally.
And it's become part of your career. And that's what I've also tried to always tell myself too is what if I am limiting, like what if you're limiting yourself and your capabilities and how great you could be and how big your career could be and how your life could go and your happiness by trying to be perfect? Like what if by trying to filter yourself and only show this perfect version, you are limiting how far and how great you could be? And so I always thought, well, what if I just take the biggest risk of all, which is really just put myself out there, show like my bad side of my face on podcasts, like talk even if people think I'm annoying, and like just put stuff out there that I like and take a chance on myself and see if maybe I can create a world where like, or create a life for myself where I can be happy and myself at the same time, or be successful and still be myself at the same time, right? Instead of like thinking the only way I'll be successful is if I try to fit a perfect mold. What if doing that really limits me? And then there's going to be someone else who realizes, oh, I'm going to be brave enough to be myself. And then they're going to be the ones who, you know, live your dream life. And then the rest of your life, you're going to be sitting watching this person like jealous,
it's a domino effect.
You got to be the brave one.
Totally. I think that
Yeah.
that's like going to be like the what's it called of the show.
It's terrifying
The
though. It's not
title of
easy.
this episode.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and that's
my
why
brain's
people
on,
don't
like,
do
low
it.
battery today.
It's okay. That's why people don't do it. And that's why a lot of people hate on it, and a lot of people feel jealous or they feel threatened when somebody like lives out their true life.
Oh my gosh, and they will always try to like talk it down, tear it down for you.
They will. But
Always.
it's and the craziest thing too is like it's not fucking easy to do that. Like it's not easy to try and be yourself online. Like it's already so freaking hard, but then they look at it and are jealous and want to tear it down more. And it's like I'm already over here struggling so hard to be myself in this world. It's a lot easier to wear a mask. It's a lot easier.
That is why I think it's important to talk about these like more real topics and just show everyone that like we're all human, we're all struggling, and then people are more empathetic and they're less fucking bitchy on these apps and stuff.
And then to realize you can be successful just being yourself too, and actually sharing the stuff that like scares you. That's a beautiful thing. Yeah. And like I mean, there's been multiple times where I've had lows to the point where I thought I might need to be hospitalized or something. And I take Lexapro because I also had a super low where like my anxiety was paralyzing me. And that was even before I started porn. Probably when I realized I needed to change my life and I was terrified because I was comfortable.
Stagnant.
Yeah, I was comfortable going like with my idea to go to med school, and until I realized I didn't like it, and then I was like, fuck, like I want to like it though because I want to just stay in this safe environment, but I don't like it anymore, and you have to listen to yourself. So I think like if you don't listen to yourself and you continue to not, and you continue to put on a mask, it might work for a time and it might keep you protected, but eventually you will end up breaking down. Like you'll end up being hospitalized, you'll end up on medication, like you'll end up it's not sustainable
or you end up so numbed out that you just go through your life and like maybe you never, and I think there's
maybe you never break.
No, but I think there's a lot of people who like maybe they live their entire lives and they don't even realize like, wow, I've done everything that society told me to do. I did everything that my family told me to do, and like maybe they had so much potential that they never even got to explore.
Exactly. And that's something too, like I think it benefited me a lot that my parents have older friends, because I grew up spending all my time with my parents and all my time with their older friends that were also super successful. And that's something that all of them told me is like their regrets, you know, or like just do what you want to do with your life and you won't look back and realize that you like wasted it, and that following what other people want you to do is never going to make you happy.
And life is short. You never know what tomorrow brings.
Exactly. And it's like a game and an adventure, right? It's this adventure that we can experience to the fullest and get so much human understanding from, or we can be so paralyzed with fear that we stick in our box and we stay on a safe path. And that's for some people. Like honestly, a safe, calm life is for some people. And that's what I tell a lot of people is I didn't choose this for myself. I couldn't choose that I have this deep, undying fascination for things that push people's boundaries and that are erotic and violating. It is just what I enjoy and where I find like life happens for me, and I have to follow that or else I will be miserable. And that's just how it is for me. For other people, it might be something completely different, but totally. I did not pick this freaking path. I would pick a more peaceful, calm life for myself if I could, but I'm learning how to be extremely like fulfilled and happy in my life with what I'm working with and the brain that I have been dealt.
What are some of the negatives you've found in this line of work?
Honestly, like the only thing that comes to mind is the fact that you are exposed to the opinions of everybody, and you are constantly being perceived, and it's so unnatural to not take that into account. Like it is so unnatural to not care how people are perceiving you. Yeah. And I already knew that would happen, but I did have a mask on in the beginning, which was comedy and stuff, you know, and now I don't have a mask anymore. And it is so freaking hard. And I think it's completely unnatural for humans. Like I think that is where the real challenge is with this job. And that is the biggest drawback. And maybe, you know, you can benefit a lot from this. You can make a lot of money. For me, I mean, it's what I want to do. It doesn't matter how people think about me, but it's still, that is the con of this job, is like you are perceived by so many in your most intimate moments. They will see inside your butthole you know, and they will, and there will people with comments on it. And that is so unnatural because back in the day, we only knew the people in our community. And then the only person that saw our bodies or our real inner selves or our opinions were our closest family and friends or just our husband or boyfriend. And now you've got millions of people perceiving it. That is crazy for the brain to wrap its head around.
Do you feel like you can even wrap your head around that?
Not at all. Like even only recently did I start getting recognized. Like I get recognized a lot of places I go.
Is that weird? Does it ever creep you out?
Well, I never really realized how many real people follow me because it was always from my own bedroom and I never saw anybody. So it was just numbers.
Yeah.
And numbers, it's all relative. So a million views can feel like a lot of views until you start getting 10 million or 20 million views. And then when you get 20 million views, you're like, oh, there's people getting 100 million views. And you just look at it like numbers, right? Until you realize, holy shit, even 1 million views is 1 million people. Or even 500K people following me, that's like 500K real people. And then when I walk in the street and someone recognizes me, I'm like, holy shit, these are like real girls that are very similar to how I was or how I am.
Or real
that are perceiving me and following me.
Parents and
yeah.
Do you get recognized in the grocery store?
Oh, I get recognized at the fucking worst moments. Like always when I look so bad. But I would go crazy if I tried to control that. So I've just also had to accept people are going to recognize me when I'm exhausted, when I look really bad, when I'm feeling super awkward and weird and totally like mentally cloudy. And I just have to embrace that they're going to see me as a human with flaws. And I'm going to try and always be the nicest. Like that's my biggest anxiety about it is like, what if I'm so tired or awkward?
They catch me
cloudy.
at a bad moment and then they
and then
associate
and like to tell
that.
them, hey, like I gotta go, like I'm too tired to talk right now or something. It makes me feel bad. So I'll sit there, like especially in the beginning, I would sit there and talk to them for as long as they wanted to talk until I was literally so exhausted because I didn't want them to think I was mean, you know?
You have to have boundaries.
But I'm like even though like my job is very outward focused, I'm a super introverted person and I can be very like I get socially exhausted super fast. Mm-hmm. And so I've just had to accept like I'm always going to be nice because it is so freaking flattering anytime anybody says hi to me because I'm like, oh my God, like my brand actually exists in people's mind. Like it's not just numbers on the internet and not in real life. Like this is a real thing.
Is it?
But I do have to say like, hey, I got to go. Like, or I'm feeling really tired today. I'm sorry. I wish I could talk more, but I just got to go.
No, I think boundaries are super important in all aspects of your life, and that's something I've been working on recently. Is it ever weird? Do you feel like you like dissociate a little bit, or do you think about the fact that like, oh, this person's perhaps seen me naked or seen me get fucked?
Honestly, every single time somebody says hi to me, whether it's a guy or a girl, usually if it's a girl, like they might be sexually into me and seen my sexual content, but usually it's like they love my TikTok content. And then with men, it's like, I subscribe to your OnlyFans. But every single time someone talks to me, I am just like deeply feel so blessed. Like I'm like, holy shit. And thank them so much for coming up to me because I will go back home that night and be like, oh my God, my brand still exists. Like I'm not on the outs. I'm not fucking dying off. Like that gives me so much confidence that what I'm doing is working.
Yeah.
So that's really all I feel like. I'm just immensely grateful to them. And I just if I could, like you can tell I'm a talker. Like I could fucking talk to them forever. That's the problem. But no, I think I'm probably like very in the moment.
Next.
I know. I was thinking about doing a podcast and maybe I will at some point, but that's another thing where it's like, fuck, you're putting out your opinions every week on the internet, like your deep self.
Brutal.
Yeah, you're putting out your truest self because you can't be fake every week on a pod. Like you can't if you're talking that much. You're sharing your truest self, and then I'm like, maybe I'm not ready to break that. Tiny last little mask I have left of privacy in my life.
How do you navigate your dating life?
I have no idea. I'm not like, I've never really been a dater. Like I'd never gone on dates with like maybe anyone. I don't think I've ever gone on a date, like a first date or something. I've only like maybe gone out to dinner with guys I'm already like been with for years. Right now, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I fall in love really easy. I have a boyfriend of 3 years.
Are you guys monogamous?
No.
Okay.
And we met in the homeless shelter I was working in when I was doing pre-med at UCLA. And a year after that, I started doing OnlyFans and I started filming with him. And now we film together most of the time. I film with other guys too. When I'm on a trip, like just this week, I slept with a guy here in New York.
How did you meet the guy here?
I met him out. I met him and his friends out at like
a club or a bar?
What is it? Soho Grand?
Okay.
That's a hotel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was cute. And then my friend Hannah had sex with his roommate, and I had sex with him in
Like
his
all
bed.
in the same room?
No, he was in. She was in the other room with the roommate, and then I was in the other room with him. And I tell Drew, my boyfriend, about all of it, but Drew and I are like, that's what's so complicated about my life is I fall in love with people, and lots of different types of people. And even if I'm in love with someone, I'm starting to realize it might not mean they're the right partner for me. And that's like something that's super hard to navigate. So with Drew, like I fully support him, and he's bipolar, which aka means he's absolute genius. And like as also he is a sexual genius, and he has so much creativity, but how his brain works makes it really hard for him to like hold down a job or something. And I have created this environment where he can thrive so much and really be a benefit to like my business, and also support himself and take care of himself and live a nice life and feel like he's told me so many times that this is the first time he's ever felt successful at anything in his entire life. And I love that. And I literally love him so much. I'm starting to realize maybe more so even like a child. Like even I have cravings lately where I want a real partner, someone I can have kids with. Like I can't have kids with him for multiple reasons. One, because like bipolar and schizophrenia really runs in his family and he doesn't want to pass that down. But then second of all, and really the main thing is that his emotional stability is like not stable. It's not reliable. And he's lacking a lot of skills. Like to have a child is probably the most stressful thing you could literally ever do, and will push you to your ultimate edge that you don't even know you have yet. And he knows he can't handle that. And I also know that he, at least at this point, cannot handle that. And so it would really
have a baby anytime soon?
No, but maybe in like 10 years or something.
Okay.
But it's like I'm like deeply in love with him, and I also now realize like there are parts of my future that I need something different from a partner. Mm-hmm. But I fully support this person. And I think if I had kids with him, like it would be like my 2 kids and then him also as a kid. Yeah. But I can't date other men and be like, oh yeah, I just have this 35-year-old child that I adopted. They're going to be like, no, that's a grown man that you fuck. Like that's not, you can't just have that in your life. So I'm really trying to navigate right now, like how to figure out, how to love somebody, but also realize like they're not maybe the life partner that you need. Like maybe you need someone that gives you the same amount that you give them.
Yeah, you're just looking for different things, or maybe something will fit.
But it's impossible because I'm literally deeply in love with Drew. Like I'm deeply in love with him.
And sounds like you guys, your lives are very intertwined.
On
different
like
levels,
super.
not even just romantically, sexually, work-wise.
Exactly.
How do you guys not get jealous?
I honestly, people ask me this all the time, and maybe it's because I have this, like just maybe the psychological way that I look at life, where what's the freaking point of getting jealous to me? Like if somebody doesn't like me.
You just not even feel it?
I mean, I do. I think everybody feels jealousy.
Were to go just fuck someone and he tells you about it, obviously, and that's your guys' arrangement. Mm-hmm. So he's not breaking any rules and he's being honest. Mm-hmm. You still don't feel like
in my head, so this
or you can
how
separate the sex and the love.
I feel jealousy because I think everyone feels jealousy. Totally. I think it's like impossible not to, but I don't really apply any value to it. So if like in those kind of moments where I feel this kind of jealousy, it's so say he goes out and like fucks somebody and tells me about it. One, there's the thought that
what if
well, I mean, there's that, but if he falls in love, that's what's meant to happen. Like that's he's supposed to, like you can't hold on to if someone falls, you can't control love. Like you can't use if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. I have no control over that. But two, if you have a special bond with somebody, it's not or love, it's not replaced by sex. Like it's just I do separate love and sex a lot. At least for me, like it's completely different. Like I can have love sex, and love can be sex, but sex cannot ever. Like just pure sex cannot ever affect love. And I also, because I've had situations where I love 2 people at the same time or 3 people at the same time, I recognize that you can love somebody and value somebody and still love and value somebody else. So I kind of just let what is meant to happen happen. Like if somebody else loves someone else, there's nothing you can do about that. And I know a lot of people get so attached, maybe that's what it is. Like since they're so attached, they want to try and alter or hold on to something that's not theirs anymore or that they can't control.
I think that comes out of insecurity.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a
but you got to just accept person. You can't, like you just, so what is it like?
I mean, I'm the worst, but I have a lot of jealousy issues. But I think a lot of them come from insecurity and like a need to control, and like growing up in a really kind of, it wasn't that my household was very chaotic. It was more kind of lonely and neglectful when I was a kid. And so I feel like this lack of control when I was like a little girl, also with like my mom passing away, all this stuff, really manifested itself into me needing, like, I've been kind of type A, control freak, and I feel like that's why I've been successful in business and all of these things, and like can get shit done. But it comes from this like deeper wounded inner child place, and that can definitely trickle over into my romantic relationship.
Does your jealousy come, is it comparative? So is it like because you're comparing yourself, like do you become jealous of, so say is it usually because a guy say likes somebody else or gave attention to another girl? Like does it come out in that way?
Yeah, I can come out in
and
that
then
way.
Is it like because then are you jealous of the other girl or like the attention?
I think it's more maybe I'm jealous of the, how can you kind of like abandon me, or and this is something I've worked really hard on in the past couple of years in therapy, is that two things can exist at once. So someone could love me and, like you're saying, love someone else, or someone could be fucking someone else and still love me.
Yeah, someone can be like, that girl's hot, and also think you're hot. Someone can think that girl is absolutely fascinating and also think that you're absolutely fascinating.
Totally. And so it's been really it's difficult for me to hold those two things at once, and that's just something with like I have BPD,
like competitiveness maybe too, which is probably like beneficial.
More like I feel like my mental illness literally is like, that's one of kind of the criteria, is like it's difficult to hold those perceptions of reality at the same time. And so that's been hard to navigate. Or just even like with my ex-boyfriend, who I love very, very deeply, and he was in a relationship recently and it was really hard on me. But something that I've been trying to just hold on to is like, I know he loves me, and like our relationship is so special that even if he has a relationship with someone else, it will never be the relationship he has with me. Like Eileen is not replaceable.
Exactly.
Like this other girl is a different girl, and they may have a great relationship, but it's also just not going to be the one he had with me. And that was like, I really had to work with my therapist.
And maybe that's because like we live in this world where it kind of, there's this idea that everyone's a one relationship person, but really like you have relationships beyond just girlfriend, boyfriend. You have relationship with friends and family, and everybody has like a multitude of relationships, and you need that to be healthy. Like anybody that's healthy, if they only have one relationship in their life, that's like, it's not healthy. So maybe that is like what I've maybe naturally always accepted, because there's not anything I've done to not feel jealous, because I do feel jealous. I've just never, maybe it was how I was treated well by my family when I was a kid, like really given unconditional love, where I felt like when someone's trying to make me jealous or doing things that make me feel jealous, they're not, I mean, I guess I don't feel jealous doing a lot of things, but if somebody's trying to make me jealous, I just ditch. Like I'm just gone, because I don't respond to that.
It's manipulation.
Yeah. But then other than that, like I have always realized that like, I mean, and maybe that's also because all my boyfriends I've ever had, like I've been in all long-term relationships that were always sweethearts to me. Like I've only had really, really sweet boyfriends who have made me feel like I am super special to them. And our relationship is this like super, super deep connection that even if we break up, like we still will always recognize.
Yeah.
And I think maybe there's faith in that, like having faith in that.
Totally. I did an episode the other day because I had a really big falling out with a close friend of mine recently for a multitude of reasons, but I was talking about just toxic friendships, and then how that relates to toxic romantic relationships, of like, once you get into one or you have like a bad experience, it's hard to not then fall into the pattern, because you're like, this is what I deserve, or this is normal. And like, I think it can become this domino effect very easily. So it's like, if you haven't had been in an abusive relationship or something, then I feel like it's easier to know what you deserve and to be in other healthy relationships.
Definitely. And that's literally, in my case, luck. I mean, I'm attracted to a certain type of person.
I mean, I'm attracted to the worst.
Yeah. See,
I
for some reason, thank God, even young me like did this right. But I have always been really attracted to really sweet people that treat me like I'm the most special girl in the world.
I'm masochistic.
Yeah. See those kind of guys, or like even women or friends or anything, I literally walk away from immediately.
I'll do both, but
you'd probably go crazy if you didn't. You only
do go crazy. That's like the whole point. No, like I live my crazy, and for many years I fully was a crazy woman. Like I lived this crazy girl truth.
Because
I was always in pain and always, but ultimately I think that's why 4 years ago I stepped away and I like went to the hospital for a while and didn't have a phone, because I was like, I am the author of my book or whatever corny saying, like this is my life, and at a certain point like I can't play victim anymore. I'm putting myself back into the situations. I'm not choosing to walk away when I see the red flag. I'm running towards the red flag, and like I can't continue to live my life like this, or else I'm actually gonna kill myself.
And that's the funniest thing too, is people like a lot of the people I date kind of, people will think they're red flags. Like they're maybe less attractive than me, or they're broke, or like my current boyfriend, I met him at a homeless shelter and he's bipolar. But the thing I'm always attracted to is like my type is really kind and really sweet. So yeah, like there's red flags. Everything is, there's so many different types of red flags. But for me, the biggest red flag is like not making me feel like I am super special, and not allowing for that deep connection that you feel so safe in.
Oh yeah,
that's what real love is.
Totally.
Like feeling really, and once you like, maybe it is because I felt so safe in all of those like deep connections that I found with people that were very weird and odd, or shy, or broke, or like crazy, and that my family didn't approve of, and that my friends didn't approve of. Regardless, at the end of the day, I would go to bed sleeping next to them, feeling like we have a deep, like cosmic connection that like that is the reason for life. Right. And when you feel that, then it's like, oh, no matter how ugly I am, no matter what, like I can find this with people. And that's like, special.
Well, I need to learn something. I'm like the opposite. I feel like I will pick.
You'll find it.
No, I'll pick like, I mean, I know why I do it. And so I'm working to kind of untangle that web these days. And for many years, I just lived my life not realizing my patterns. And so I was just walking through life feeling very confused and disoriented and just honestly crazy. But just like dating guys who maybe on paper societally are like really acceptable, or like they're super, super hot. Like I've definitely dated some.
And you're like, this should feel good.
I've dated some guys who are like fucking like so hot. I've dated guys who like have a great job and have a lot of money or come from a great family. And and then there's a list of other things kind of behind the surface that I'm like, this person doesn't make me feel happy. I don't want to be in this relationship. But I think I have a deep fear of intimacy. So I would almost rather be in a more vapid kind of partnership and just have someone next to me every night than like you're saying you love the real deep connection. That scares the shit out of me.
And it is, I guess, when you are with people that are not like as good on paper, or like have all these like, I don't know, just crazy parts about their life, or crazy things that you're experiencing. Like what I've realized, like dating the guy that was in a homeless shelter, and I was, come from a pretty well-off family and in school, and my rent paid for my family. There are very awkward and vulnerable, maybe not awkward, but there's vulnerability from the first moment you spend time together, because it doesn't just work perfectly, and it's not like easy, and your family doesn't like it, and society doesn't like it. And maybe like I've been lucky enough to enjoy that vulnerability really fast. Whereas you might avoid that kind of vulnerability at first.
I do avoid it.
That's amazing though.
But I think
it's good to know that about yourself.
And I think exactly like that's something. Now it's kind of the next step of like, it's taken me years of like intense therapy to really realize, where does everything come from? Why do I do the things that I do? That's why I've always been interested in psychology. And kind of what is like the baggage I'm bringing to the table. And now I'm really at a point in my life where I'm like, I want to make the change. And so how can I do that?
That's so good.
Which is like a whole different thing. And it's way easier said than done. Like it's almost easier cognitively. My therapist told me this like 2 weeks ago. She was like, insight is great, but all the insight in the world won't actually change your life.
Yeah, you have to take action. You totally do. I remember seeing a quote when I was really young, probably like 6th grade, that I was on Tumblr or something, and it was like, you have to be your own hero. And I've literally never forgot that. I have never, ever, ever forgot that. And I don't know why in 6th grade I was such a deep thinker, like, oh my God, I have to be my own hero. But it's been with me my whole life. It's like, you've got to, at some point, take action on the stuff that you know you need.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I really love about your story. And like, I will be honest, like, I wasn't too familiar with like, I listened to some stuff obviously before this to prep, but I feel like we talked about a lot of different things that I hadn't heard you talk about in other interviews.
It feels so good to talk about this kind of stuff.
It's like a therapy session.
It is. And I don't get to talk about a lot of this. Like, this is so what I think about every single day and like my day-to-day life, and I don't get to talk about it online a lot, and I don't always get to talk about it. Like, if I'm talking about it online, it's to a screen, not to another person that's experienced the same things. Because all of us girls that are being perceived, like, even if you're not in social media, but especially if you are, we have such similar experiences of like the lows and the struggles of it, and also the highs of it. It's nice to talk to somebody who understands.
I know, we should get dinner.
I know.
Next time you're in town. Okay, people wrote in also saying they just wanted some like hygiene tips. I know you've talked about sex tips a million times, so we don't have to go there, because you guys can check out like literally
Just
go
watch-
on her
watch
TikTok,
what I do.
watch what she
Figure out
does.
what feels good.
But yeah, like hygiene, maybe tips for orgasming. We can do like one or two little rapid fire questions.
Yeah. When it comes to hygiene, I mean, my mom being my gynecologist is like super helpful to me, because I had UTIs all of college. Like, literally every time I have sex, I'll get a UTI. So
Welcome to my life.
yeah, I take like a prophylactic postcoital dose of a
Stop. That's
sulfa
what. So
drug.
I've just been doing that, taking
Life-changing.
antibiotics like right after I have sex, but I accidentally started it like 12 hours after I last fucked, so I got the UTI. So I'm on antibiotics
It's
right
the
now.
fucking worst. Yeah, that's what happened to me in college. I would literally get a UTI every time I had sex. So then I was constantly like, I'd take the antibiotics for a week or 2 weeks, and then I'd get a UTI 2 days later and have to start them again.
No,
And that's
it's
literally
fucked.
terrible for your
It's
body.
so bad for your body
Yeah.
to be on them all the time. I actually am going to do an episode with this urologist I saw, because
It's going to be so good.
I'm going to start doing bladder installations. They like fill up your bladder with like antibiotic. I just been having
because you've been having really chronic UTIs.
Yes. But I've been learning so much from her. She's fucking amazing. So I want to have her on the show to do like a whole episode on them.
So that's like, yeah, that's my biggest tip when it comes to like hygiene, is like probably having a doctor, like really find, like my mom made sure that once I was sexually active, I had a gynecologist and I knew what it was like to go to the gynecologist
Someone
and
to
find
ask
a good
questions
gynecologist.
too.
Yeah, where you
but
can
you
email
have
them
to
and
fucking find someone who is non-judgmental
yeah.
and curious. That's my number one thing for a doctor.
Yes, exactly.
Because people who think they know everything,
Yeah.
doctors included. Like,
You-
and this
you
goes
really
back
do.
to the kind of overarching theme of this interview, which is like, don't just blindly believe and follow people who have that like quote unquote
Authority. Yeah.
figures. Exactly. Sorry,
And
again,
I've been,
brain on
it's okay. I've been lucky enough to have a mom who is like just such a good doctor, like just such an amazing personality and meant to do it, and so smart that I have like, it's thank God I found her. But yeah,
Someone
you can
ask the
find somebody you can
questions, too.
email and text when you have a UTI or when you have BV or when you have a yeast infection, all of which is normal, and help you like find a routine that makes it so your body is not constantly being destroyed by the fact that you occasionally have sex, and keeps your pH in balance in your vagina. Because of course we all know, like, you take antibiotics for a UTI and it gives you a yeast infection. And then you have to put stuff in for a yeast infection, and then you get BV, and then you have to put stuff in for
No, it
BV,
becomes
and then you
this
get a UTI
horrible
again.
cycle. And also there's so much stigma that it's about being unclean.
Yeah, it
like,
is.
I remember when I was younger, I would get so embarrassed to tell a guy if I had a yeast infection. So I would always be like, oh, you guys know what a UTI is. So I would always lie and say I had a UTI when I had a yeast infection.
That is so funny.
And now that I'm older, I'm like, wait, are people so stupid that they just don't realize that like a lot of this stuff is naturally occurring? Like, you naturally have yeast in your vagina at all times. It's doing certain things like drinking a lot of alcohol.
Yeah.
If you're really stressed out, if you were on antibiotics, then it disrupts
exactly, it'll make it go
pH.
up or down in certain amounts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then it can overgrow. And that's the same thing for like BV or, for example, E. coli. I've been learning like naturally you go to the bathrooms and it can live in like your bladder and your GI tract. And so once again, if you have anything that kind of upsets that, then you can get a UTI and you're more prone to this shit.
And I even learned, like, when I got my first UTI, my second time having sex, my mom was like, all the women on her side of the family get UTIs every time they have sex, and it's because like
shorter urethra.
Yeah, our urethra is closer to our vagina than like maybe others and other women too, and it can even just be because of friction causing dead skin cells to slough off and go inside your urethra. Like it doesn't have to be
no, it's not always
dirty
bacteria.
Yeah, and so then there's even porn girls though that I still meet all the time that they're having sex all the time and they don't even understand their own body or anything, and they'll be like, oh, I must have got a yeast infection because the guy's dick was dirty. I was like, no, that's not how it happens. Like you can be perfectly clean and get any infection because it's like it's
a little ecosystem. It's like a little aquarium.
And I swear our bodies like naturally and historically and evolutionarily want us to just have sex once and have a baby. You know, they're not used to take like a dick is meant to just, it can easily have sex with so many vaginas.
Impregnate so many.
Yeah, it can just easily do it. But then a vagina is like you have sex with it once and you get a UTI, and then like my great grandma died at 24 from a UTI.
Really?
Because they didn't have antibiotics and it went to her kidney. Yeah. And all UTIs will go to your kidney, you know, if left long enough. So it's like these women used to die a long time ago if they got a UTI from just one time having sex. And so I bet you that's also a protection mechanism why like religion or just society in general was like, you need to have sex after you get married and only have sex to have children. Because like you could die back then from sex. Like women are just, our bodies are not necessarily made to be pounded out all the time. That doesn't mean that our brains don't want it, and that doesn't mean that it's bad. Like I love to do it, and it's what I'm going to do.
Lately. It's like actually, I don't know what's wrong with
But
me.
you have to understand your body that when you're doing that, you know?
And then I feel like, like I have a UTI, so I haven't been having sex while I have the UTI, but I'm like ragingly, like my hormones are
so painful.
Okay, I just want to know like an anal tip, because obviously your fucking Instagram handle is like about
anal princess.
Yeah. And like you genuinely like love it.
I love it so much.
Did you always love it? When was the first time you did it?
The first time I did it was with Drew on our first date from the homeless shelter. Okay. So I went to his car, like he took me in his car to a parking lot of a grocery store down the street from the shelter, and we had anal in the back seat because I was on my period, and he just went in my butt. Yeah, he's taken like 30 girls to anal virginity. He's like an anal freak.
Okay.
And I had never
have lube or anything.
No, I didn't even use lube for the first year I had anal.
And it was
I didn't even know. It was literally amazing. It was, so he got me super horny. First of all, I was maybe the horniest I've ever been in my whole life that night, because it was like a big thing. For months I had been wanting to fuck him and hadn't acted on it at all. And it was super taboo. And so I was finally acting on it, and I was so attracted to him. And then he ate my ass for a long time, and like it was really wet, and his dick was really wet. Like he had a lot of spit on it, and his dick just slowly slid in me. He also has foreskin, which helps a lot. Because there's less friction, but it just slid in, and I was like, oh my God, he's in my butt. And it was literally euphoric. Like it was euphoric. And then ever since then I have chased that feeling. But what it is about it is like, I mean, maybe I'm blessed a little bit with like a high pain tolerance and a stretchy butthole and the ability
I think
to
there is a biological component of just like how your makeup is. Like for some reason I swear my butt is just like freakishly tight.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's like even anxiety and stuff, but
that's another thing too, like you have to fully relax your body, and maybe I'm already able to,
like literally I've done lube. I ordered a lube shooter, like I'm very sexually adventurous.
Have you put like little stuff in first?
Oh yeah, I love butt plugs.
That I can good. Take. So dicks are the hard part.
I can't really do an actual dick.
I honestly don't know how it happened to me, like that it worked.
Even my boyfriends are like, I just don't think this would work. It would like cut off the tip of my dick. Like it's just like
it's
weird,
like really tight.
But I also have a really sensitive vagina. Like yeah, I would rather have sex super short but multiple intervals. Like I can't fuck for like hours, or else I get really sore and like painful.
And I don't know if everybody will enjoy the feeling of anal. Like the reason I like it is because it's literally so intense that like you can't think about anything but just breathing to make sure you keep breathing, because it's so intense. I mean, now sometimes, because I've done it for so long, like it doesn't always feel that intense, but usually it does. And that's why I crave it so much.
I need like a finger in my ass to come.
It feels so good.
Like I need a finger or a toy. Like I need that stimulation, but I just haven't been able to like really get there. Like I've had anal sex like a kind of with like a boyfriend or two, like more like put it in, but not like actually had sex. There's
also like desensitizing lube, which can help a lot.
But I've always heard to not use that from like a more gynecological.
Your body,
the pain is making sure you know, like, so you don't rip anything. And
That's what I've heard too.
so
but
if it's numbed out, that's like not good.
Whenever I used it, it didn't feel like, and I don't use it anymore because I just don't need to, and I crave that like intensity of it. But it doesn't like numb. It loosens the muscles, so like it actually can help girls a lot that they just can't feel any pleasure from it because it feels like they're shitting basically the whole time because they're clenching so much. And it kind of lets you relax and actually feel the sensation. So like I'll feel more sensation sometimes when I use that than when I don't, because like,
well, you have two sphincters.
It's not that terrifying like
you have
feeling.
to like go through the first one and then allow the deeper one to relax. And
Right.
I just can never get to that deeper one.
Yeah, the deeper one is hard, but also half the time I don't even think I hit the deeper one, thank God. That's why a lot of people are like, oh, you're gonna shit yourself when you're older. I'm like, well, that upper sphincter is there, and that's what really controls it. And I don't really think that very often. Like Drew's dick is not that big, and I don't like fuck that big of dicks.
Have you had sex with a big dick? Anal?
I have. I've had like a 11 in like a really really big porn dick once in my butt. And I was on vacation, so I didn't have desensitizing lube or anything, but I totally would have used it that night because it was on camera. But I prepared myself a lot.
How do you prepare?
As in, like, when I was cleaning out my butt and stuff, I was putting a lot of things.
You do like enema and stuff?
I don't at all. Like back then, I mean, now when I'm filming with girls and stuff, I feel like it's the nicest thing to do because we'll do ass to mouth and stuff to really, it's nicer to clean it out fully with water and everything. So that it's just not.
How do you guys not get a yeast infection or BV from ass to mouth? Or you do?
Well, ass to vagina, you'll.
Sorry, ass to vagina.
Yeah, ass to mouth, I've gotten a good amount of strep throat from.
Yeah.
So that's not fun. Ass to vagina is really rare. I don't really ever do that, but sometimes it happens. Like this week it happened. 2 weeks ago it happened on camera. And I just learned from other porn girls who douche after, which I don't like douching.
Does it disrupt your like ecosystem?
It definitely does. It definitely does. But I didn't get a yeast infection this last 2 times from it. So
have you ever used boric acid?
God, I tried it
because I love boric acid. Like even this week, I'm on the antibiotics for the UTI. I'll use boric acid like every other night to then I don't get a yeast infection.
I don't. That's really good though. I tried boric acid and it just didn't work for me. And I talked to my mom about it and she just thinks like it maybe works for some people to balance your pH, but like
I do
not everybody.
Preventatively, like if I actually get a yeast infection, I'm like, oh, I need a diflucan or like give me the real shit. But for preventative, when I know like I'm gonna even just like after fucking. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm gonna get something. Yeah. I'll just use it.
I use stuff that's similar, so I think it's like probably very similar, but I use like different pH balancing gels and suppositories that help with making your pH balance, and that's like such a good thing, which I never used to do. Like since this job, it's so helpful because like you'll feel like even if you're not having sex. But yeah, for anal tips, I would say like because I anal train a lot of girls in porn. Like I'll do their first anal video and I'll start from really small and like have them be able to fit really big stuff, and then they're always like, whoa, I really didn't think I could do that. I didn't think it would be that easy. And so my tip is like,
I need your tip.
My tip would literally just be like, start small and practice, like go bigger and bigger. Practice. I mean, one of the things a lot of people say is like it opens up your butthole to push out when you're pushing something in, like pretend like you're shitting and it will open up your butthole.
I know, but you have to be like super.
Yeah, you have to hope you don't shit.
Have you ever had an accident?
Not from doing like, that, but I mean,
human thing. It's like obviously you're playing with the risk. So like, I'm never gonna have an anal with someone who would be freaked out if something happened, because that's just like go fuck yourself. Lately,
it's been easier to not have it not be messy for some reason, but like I used to, I mean, probably a quarter of the time with Drew, because we never prepare like at all. He just sticks it in. I'd say a quarter of the time, like it'll come out a little dirty. I've never really had it where it's been like this full terrible, like people think like, oh, like even before I did anal, I thought you're gonna have anal and you're literally gonna have diarrhea everywhere and like explode, and I was like, it'd be terrible. Really, it's like a speck of shit on their dick or something.
Take a shower after.
I've done it with porn stars like that. Like a lot of porn girls that do anal all the time. I'll film videos with them and I'll pull the butt plug out and it has poop on it. Like it is just normal and we are all used to it. And people who do anal are used to it. Like Drew could give a fuck if his dick has shit on it.
Do people do drugs before videos?
No one that I because well, one, like the two guys that I fuck in porn are fully sober, and then I'm like pretty sober. Like I sometimes smoke weed, not before a shoot. I rarely drink, but I'm like my most sexual self and best when I'm sober.
Yeah.
But I do know a lot of girls, like a lot of girls have told me to do poppers or that they do poppers before their shoots. I mean, a lot of porn people in general do a lot of drugs.
Yeah, I'm just
but
wondering
nobody
to,
that
like,
I've worked
relax.
with has. Oh yeah, like poppers for sure. Like a lot of girls do poppers
Well,
before
in
they
the
do
party
anal.
scene in New
I
York,
feel like poppers are terrible for you, aren't they? I don't know. Maybe there's
mean,
debate on that. I don't actually
it's
know.
such a quick high almost. But yeah, poppers apparently like relax your.
They must kill at least one brain cell.
Like 1,000. You can like feel them dying, but it's the same
Yeah.
thing. It's like it's doing like whippets, just like on a smaller level. Is kind of what it feels like, but.
I say the sustainable route is like, because you don't need to fit that much in your butt anyway. You don't need to fit something unnatural sized in there. Like, I always say this is kind of weird, but like Drew is about the same size as like a shit that would come out of my ass. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not stretching my asshole to be this big, just like a little natural size. So it's not that crazy for it to fit in there. But I would just stretch out from small stuff to like a little bit bigger butt plugs and like go in and out with them a lot so your butthole gets used to that.
That feeling. 'Cause that's the feeling.
That's
like,
the weird
hard.
feeling.
I can have something just in there, like a butt plug or a finger.
And also, like, don't think that toys, like butt plugs feel amazing. I love them. But don't think that toys feel like a dick. Like a dildo that is smaller than a guy's dick will feel worse and bigger than a dick. Because it's so weird. But like dicks are soft and squishy even when they're hard. And a dildo in your butt is so hard and painful and sticky because of the silicone, like, or glass or metal. Also, glass and metal butt toys only. Like
Well,
they
they're easier
just
to
feel
clean,
better.
too.
They're easier to clean and they slide better. They slide so much better with lube on them.
Yeah, I like
And like it shouldn't hurt. Like don't shove stuff in. Like I
That's
never
why I was
putting
nervous
stuff in.
about the lube situation.
Yeah.
You should know if it hurts because then you
and
should
I've
stop.
noticed it doesn't like take away sensation. If anything, you feel more sensation. It just helps it relax. And I think people think it's like putting lidocaine on your asshole, but it's not. It's like a muscle relaxant, I think. But I would say like the best tip really though, sustainably, is to not even use that and just do it naturally. Like use normal lube and don't and slowly coax things like in and out and don't push so hard that it hurts and fucking breaks your butthole. Because I never, even though I like that it's intense and maybe like painful in an intense way, it's never like actually painful where like I've felt things where I'm trying to fit in like I've put in a butt plug that you then expand once it's inside you and it gets like this big. And I've felt the feeling of like tearing or something not fitting.
You've ever torn your butt?
Never, which is so crazy. Thank God. And I've never had like a butt injury, but I think like a lot of the porn girls will have like prolapse or something like that because they're in porn, they're fucking like
I know they're
11,
doing, no, they're
12-inch
doing
massive dicks.
stuff that I'm like, your just body's not supposed to do
No.
that. Or it's like two dicks in the
Yeah.
fucking ass and then a dick in the vagina. And it's
I
just,
can't.
like, it's a lot.
Like I want to have anal for a long time. Like I want to have sex for a long time. I do not want to get injured. And I don't need to as well. Like I do this because I love it, not because I'm trying to get injured. So far, like I've had no butt injuries. A lot of people are like, talk about hemorrhoids and anal fissures. And I'm like, I've never had any of them. So I can't really talk about that. Yeah. And maybe that's just luck. Maybe that's because, you know, my boyfriend doesn't have a massive dick. Like he has a good 6-inch dick. He has foreskin. It's always lubed up. Even if it's not lube, it's like spit or something. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I never do it when it hurts. Yes, there's been times where it's so fucking intense and I'm like crawling away from him while he's fucking me. But it all felt in the end good. Yeah. Not like I know the feeling of it feeling like it's about to tear or something, and that is like
then you're just like
that's a no-go. Yeah. You won't love it if it feels like that.
No, I think that's good. That's boundary.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I also just like don't think like I feel like I talk about this as if we're talking about like what's for dinner tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Me
like,
too.
Like people think that's so fucking crazy and wild. I don't know. I just look at it as like kind of any other thing. Like I had someone on the podcast the other day and I was like, oh, I have to go change my pad. I was like wearing a pad. I was like, I have to go change my pad. And she was kind of taken aback and she was like, oh, wow, you said that so like openly. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I just don't feel like ashamed about it.
That's how I've always been. Like, I can't control the fact that I love to just talk about things and I'm very curious about stuff and I'll talk about it so openly. And I forget a lot. Like, I have to remind myself, this is crazy for other people. Like this knowledge, they don't talk about this stuff. They don't even think about this stuff. This is crazy for them. And I constantly have to remind myself not to get desensitized to like the kind of information that I'm sharing and remember how crazy this is for people, because I'll be like, oh, the stuff I talk about now, it's so boring. Like, because for me it might be, but I'm like, for other people this is like crazy shit.
Yeah. I know. No, it's true. Which is wild.
It is.
Yeah.
It's fun though.
So what are you working on right now?
Right now, well, I'm my next venture is YouTube. I want to start uploading to YouTube, even if it's just to like foster a little bit more of a long format community, since I do have a lot of girl fans that don't get that much from me, because like my TikToks are constantly getting deleted and your TikToks can only be so long and you can only talk about so much. So I just want to like foster that community while I have them there, and like share. They have so many questions for me all the time that I never can answer. So the next is like pushing myself to start uploading things on YouTube, which I think shouldn't be too hard, since I've already started on it, because it was like a hard jump for me, but I think it's very similar to the content I share on TikTok, just longer.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you edit everything
that's
yourself?
next. Yeah, I do everything. So
Oh my God, I'm like
do
the
everything
worst.
myself.
I can't do that. It, like,
although I have like
makes me
5
go
hours of
crazy.
footage from just Vegas. So
I know, I saw that you were going to do like a couple.
Yeah, and I was like,
part 1, part 2,
fuck.
part 3.
Yeah, because I was filming all this stuff for it, and it was like my first time really trying to film a vlog. So I was just like filming whatever I could. And I was like, oh, I suck at this. I'm missing all these things. I'm not filming enough. Like, I just thought I didn't have that much footage. And then it was 5 hours that I want it to be like a 20-minute, maybe 30-minute video max. I was like, okay, absolutely not. Like, now I have to
Cut it down.
And like, it's going to take me a lot of time and effort. And maybe eventually I'll find an editor, because I did want to try like multiple YouTube editors, or maybe even like meet with a strategist or somebody who can look at my content and be like, these are the type of videos you maybe should try out doing. But
I know there's such a world out there for all that stuff. I was watching like the D'Amelio show on Hulu, because
oh my God, I should watch that.
I was
I'm very
actually,
interested.
what was I watching? I was watching like the Kardashians or something, because I like mindless TV to relax.
I do too. I love.
And then it got
TV.
recommended for me like next, so it just came on the TV. And they have like a team of like a manager, all the shit, but they have binders.
Oh my
God. Like that's how she has
God.
to do her day, because she's working on so many different things
That's
at once.
crazy.
So it's like, oh, my line with PacSun, I have to work on TikToks. I have to dance for an hour. I have to do this for an hour. I'm going on Dancing on the Stars, and then I have to go do press and then do a shoot. And I'm like,
God, I would probably go crazy.
Organized. No, I wouldn't be. I'm like already not really the most healthy, sane person.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I just like don't have a healthy brain.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, when I'm under a lot of stress, I can almost feel like manicky.
Yeah.
And just like I wouldn't do well with that much pressure. I'm like at the perfect amount of like pressure, and then I want to stay here.
I am such a like individualist and a loner, where I cannot have someone telling me what to do. So I'll work really hard, but it's just gotta be for myself, and I've got to do it myself. And I can employ certain people for certain things, but when I get stuck in like a pattern of things I have to do and responsibilities, I'm not as happy.
Yeah.
So I think I'll hire help where I need it, and I think maybe I'll try out like a few different editors for YouTube, so that all my time isn't spent editing, because my real passion is sex.
Yeah.
And like the less time I spend on OnlyFans and the less time I love editing my OnlyFans videos, and I'll always do that because they're like 20 minutes, like it's not hard. But the less time that I spend like on OnlyFans and on Pornhub and on Reddit and like in the sexual world and on Twitter, the less happy I am and the less I feel like myself. So the more time I spend on Instagram or editing for YouTube or editing on TikTok, like I'm just start losing myself mentally, and I fucking hate it. So I think for that, I'll probably like eventually get an editor, but I kind of want to figure out what I like first. So I'm going to try and edit this 5 hours of content, and then I'll start maybe doing like talking videos on YouTube and stuff, and just sharing what I would have shared on TikTok.
Yeah.
If it wasn't getting so increasingly censored.
I know it's getting.
Yeah.
I like don't even post anything bad or sexual on there. Like my nipples were showing like through a white t-shirt.
Oh,
I wasn't wearing a bra, and they flagged it and deleted it.
I will post vlogs of like my morning running routine, like just getting ready in my workout clothes and going for a run, like so wholesome in Puerto Rico. And they'll always get taken down. I'm like, I'm trying to be fucking wholesome, but it's because I'm wearing like a half top, like sports bra top, and then mini shorts.
I've
and
been
it gets
getting
taken down.
flagged also, and I really have literally only used this for like a month, like actually, or even like the past 4 days. I've been posting every day. I'll get flagged for something about minor.
Yeah,
They
minor
think I
safety.
look
Like if you're
young.
just
It's always the minor safety for me. And I'm
me
like,
too.
what?
And I've been making pretty, I mean, my content isn't, I wouldn't say wholesome, but it's within the guidelines. Like the majority of stuff I get taken down is because like my stomach is showing in a video, or like I mentioned something. I don't even know. Half the time it always gets put back up. It's a crazy app though.
I don't understand.
But you know, when I started it,
the algorithm's fucking weird.
when I started it like 2 years ago, I could fully just talk about anal. I'd be like, I had anal last night, blah, blah. Like, I lost my anal virginity. That was my first TikTok I ever did. I was like, the sound was like, if I had $1 for every time this happened, then I'd have $2. And it was like, if I had then I'd have $1 or something. And it was like, if I had $1 for every time I lost my virginity in the back of a car on a first date, or anal virginity on the back of a car on a first date. And they were totally fine with that. You can't say virginity anymore on TikTok. You can't say anal. Like,
I know, you can't
not
say
at all.
sex.
It used to be a beautiful thing. It was so beautiful. And it was like, it wasn't filled with hate back then. Like if anyone remembers TikTok from like pre-COVID, right when COVID hit era, it was like this fun little community, and everyone was like, oh, all the celebrities and like big people won't get on it because they feel awkward about it and they feel like we're weirdos. So then it was like a real community that we all felt like internet weirdos together. And now it's just everyone's on it. So now it's just hate. So
where can my followers find you?
So the best place is just onlyfans.com/Stella Barey if you want to support me. My last name is Barey. And my Twitter is Barey Baby, Barey Baby. And I think those are like my 2 places that will never disappear. My Instagram's Anal Princess. The L is a 1, the E is a 3. But you know, that might get deleted. So
You never know.
Yeah, just Google me. You'll find me somewhere. I literally have new social media every single day.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. That was so
And
fun.
I know that flew by.
I know.
Like, enjoying such a good conversation.
You were like, we'll talk for like an hour.
Yeah.
2.5 hours later.
Okay.
You're welcome.